Tom Burrell is the CEO of World Supercross, and he's on a mission to take Supercross global. He's building a championship that crosses borders, hits new markets, and introduces the sport to fans who've never had access to it before.
What opportunity is there to put Tim Geiser versus Eli Tomac on a Supercross track somewhere in the world? That's content that people engage with.
He's made a serious investment in this sport. We're talking 8 figures, giving riders another way to make a living, and for some, a better one. World Supercross isn't just an alternate series, they're creating real opportunities for riders, bringing in fresh energy and rewriting what a global Supercross championship looks like. Gypsy Gang, welcome Tom Burrell to the podcast. Now, if you're looking for the coolest and most durable gloves for your next ride, you've got to check out Fist Handwear. They have an incredible range of gloves for every condition, from hot weather to cold, and even specialized options for motocross, BMX, road, and workwear. What I love about Fist is their unique designs, whether it's hula girl skulls or logos from top athletes. They've got something that stands out, whatever your taste. Plus, their gloves are built to last, offering comfort and protection in all conditions. And it's not just gloves. Fist Handwear also offers a variety of apparel and accessories like moto socks, which I love, tees, hoodies, and hats. With free shipping USA-wide, there is no reason not to gear up with the best. I haven't used any other gloves for over a decade, and I don't plan on switching. Do yourself a favor and get yourself a pair. Join Fist Army today by visiting fisthandwear.co and explore their full range.
I met a gypsy.
All good? Tom Burwell. We're rolling.
Jason McAlpine.
Good to have you on, mate.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. There's a bit going on in your world at the moment.
There is a bit going on in my world. I think there's been a bit going on in my world since I made the decision to make this my world.
Yeah. I don't think... have you done many interviews?
We did a bit around the series last year.
Yeah.
Met some people in Australia. Did a bit with Steve Mathis.
Yeah.
But in general, we've been eyes down because we've got work to do before we talk about it.
Yeah. Well, this is cool because I've got questions. I'm sure a lot of other people have questions, and
sure.
I think sometimes it's just good to face to the name, to the series, and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
So I guess maybe the best place to start a little bit is just your background in general. So you don't necessarily come from the Supercross world,
No.
but sports marketing, sports entertainment, very much so your world.
Yeah. Professional sport, the business of sport has been my life, pretty much all of my life. And it's, as you say, it's probably quite diverse. I suppose if you go back from where we are today, previous to that, I'd been with Formula One and very much on the circuit with F1.
Yeah.
In its race promotions business, which is ultimately the business of racing, and its 24 race partners being their promoters, the host cities, and the governments that support those race deals. That's a piece of IP that Formula One sell on to those venues and to those markets, and how we're monetizing them the best, but also making sure those promoters putting the best shows on in the world.
Yeah.
And I sort of came into that from being a promoter myself, but in the sport of rugby, where I was the chief executive of the Emirates Dubai Sevens, which is the biggest rugby sevens tournament in the world, which 150,000 people go and watch over 3 days in the middle of the desert in a non-traditional...
In a non-rugby country,
Yeah, when I sort of underline that to those of your listeners to understand that, it's if you think rugby is not big here in the USA, it's much, much smaller than that in the UAE. And there's something very special that's been built out there in the middle of the desert. And rugby had been my life, for as long as I can remember, from professional sports.
Little Grom.
Yeah, Little Grom. It was the family business as it was, and it was my business all along, both as an athlete and then on to coaching, and then I started a business, and that business is still there today, and it's very successful, and then ended up at sort of the top of that part of the sport, sitting on the board of the World Series and sort of driving the piece, which is, and for background, the World Series is a touring rugby sevens asset, rugby sevens being the Olympic version of the sport that goes to 8 locations around the world, Dubai being one of. So there's a main field where the top 12 women's teams and the top men's women's teams representing their countries take place. And then around the side of it is the festivalisation of sport. And you've got the dichotomy there of trying to capture digital eyeballs with the world-class sport at the front and the very transactional nature of trying to make your dollars from everything alongside it because it's expensive to put it on in the middle of the desert. And, you learn very quickly how do you service those clients and those customers in different ways. How are you servicing them digitally, and how are you doing so as a physical asset, and ultimately how are you putting on a show for all of those. Formula One refined that, shall we say. It's a crazy world, but ultimately it's the same world. It's a traveling circus. It's an entertainment. It's
mixed in with the sport.
Yeah, mixed in with the sport, and diversification of entertainment as well. And, really different because of endemic B2B nature of it. But ultimately the same game. And one of the things that is really important to me is that we're all in the same game here, which is how do we capture eyeballs for long enough to sweat yield from them, and to ultimately service them, fan first sports and entertainment. If I can have somebody captured by a piece of sportainment, entertainment, whatever word we want to use, for a period of time, then that time is worth something to all of us.
Yeah.
At its very core, capturing them for a period of time means I'm entertaining them.
Yeah.
Which has got to be the first and foremost goal for any of us, whether it's this show, whether it's our live sport.
Yeah. Are you adding value?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And how are we doing that in the most modern, fan-centric way, recognizing that if you do it the way that you previously different sports had to do it, with their rights, with a very easy part of their balance sheet being associated with a media rights business that had been sold to a linear TV deal that had to fill 24 hours of content. Recognizing that those tectonic plates are moving so much.
Yeah, right now is like a very, very strange time for broadcasting. And I guess like how sports are married to those things. Like MotoGP is a good example because of what they're going through with Liberty, to where it's like, MotoGP, mad following in Spain, Italy, like all these European countries, all through Indonesia. They go, okay, this is the deal that's going to this country, this TV, and you end up with like a $200 million, I'm just speaking out of my ass, but like a $200 million value to just the TV deal. And then it's just like everything else kind of comes secondary.
Comes rounding errors,
but
right?
that is sort of changing now.
Yeah, and I think I sat at a dinner and sort of picture, and great to be here in Southern California, but a week ago today I was sitting on the top floor of Rothschild's Bank in London with the great and the good of sport, bankers, advisors, broadcasters, media rights, CEOs of IP businesses. And the discussion was very much the discussion we're having today. And the big fear was some of the bigger sports and the consideration and the amount of money that they've got in their balance sheets associated with those media rights deals. And the fact that broadcasters themselves have got some real questions on whether those are the right investments moving forward.
Yeah, whether it's worth it.
Given the fact that fans are not necessarily purchasing that sort of B2B to C engagement where that marketing dollars is then priming those markets themselves. Now, the biggest sports, whilst they might not continue to drive larger media rights deals, they're certainly not going to end up coming challenged and falling short.
Yeah.
The middle stream sports that have taken linear TV dollars, they're going to be faced with some challenges. And I think we all have got to face with the conundrum of how do you go from that B2B to C business to a more direct-to-consumer base. And I think that's the really exciting thing for this sport, and certainly for World Supercross, is that we don't have any broadcast deals where we've got a balance sheet to be concerned about. I've got a challenge right now of going, right, there are 505 million moto, cross, supercross participants, fans around the world, people that engage in the sport loosely or widely.
How do you come up with that number?
We've done a load of demographic work on basically the two-wheel sport in general. So what does that mean? That can mean that you're adrenaline seekers. It could mean that it's in the genes. It could mean you're a family thrill seeker. It could mean that you're into FMX, or whether that's MXGP or whether it's WSX. It means that somebody's got a touch point with it. It could also just mean within your family. So, and it's a real part of our thesis, and we're sort of going around the circles a little bit, not so much World Supercross, but from the Investco point of view, is our thesis is that we don't want to create new fans. Clearly want to create new fans within your vertical, but we're not trying to be Sail GP or some of the new sports where they go from scratch, I have to create a fan.
Yeah.
The beauty of this sport is it's got fans.
Yeah.
And it's got fans that love it.
Yeah.
And now, whether that's across enduro, motocross, supercross, the diversification of what dirt bike is.
Yeah, there's a huge umbrella
Absolutely.
that a lot of people fall under.
Absolutely. So if we go back to what we were just discussing and going, right, how do I create a piece of entertainment in whatever vertical it is for those 505 million? I don't need more than that number. That number is enormous.
Yeah,
what I need to do is service,
leverage
in
and
the
service,
appropriate way within that space.
Yeah.
And for us, building a really, really engaging ecosystem that means I can go D2C, which opens up the mind of everybody within the ecosystem about how I distribute that revenue. Because I think one of the challenges that D2C models are faced with, which is the amount of marketing dollars that you then need to put them behind and say, look, if you traditionally were looking over here for your sport, I need you to look over here. Well, you need to tell someone. So you need to spend quite a lot of money to do that. Yeah. Now, is there a model, and I know that there is, a model where we're going down the route of microtransactions. So how can we make it really, really easy for people to purchase entertainment and content, whether that be the live race, whether that be the day of racing, whatever that sits around. And as you begin to progress into that, is let's call $2.50 being the number. And let's say Gypsy Tales has the ability to speak to 1 million people a month. Now, if you can find a way to take the API of my streaming model and somebody comes through your gateway, I pay you 25% of the fee. Then suddenly I've got an effect affiliate scheme that you become a major part of. We know that the ecosystem is being serviced. It's being serviced by disparate sort of parts to it. Can I bring all of that together and share the wealth? And if I put 1 million people through a gateway to a stream to watch a race in Vancouver, and X amount of that has been shared with everyone, from manufacturers to riders to podcast hosts through to websites, social media, however we do that, then we're all better off. And I think if you just use that particular vertical, that's how we're approaching much of this. And I know we've sort of jumped into it.
Yeah.
But I believe that there is an ecosystem here that is to be built to derive value for everyone. Whether that is, how do we build an ecosystem that helps manufacturers sell more bikes? Whether that's an ecosystem that ultimately drives more dollars into the riders' pockets? Whether that is to service fans, and whether those fans be digital on a sofa or live in a stadium, how are we improving and enlarging that pot for everyone? Merchandise is a good example. I mean, merchandise in this sport is not great.
We just did a post about it yesterday. Did you see?
No, I haven't seen.
The comments are crazy.
Yeah, honestly, I've been so impressed by so much of this sport. Motocross, Supercross, MXGP, AMA, things that are happening in domestic leagues, some of the amazing exhibitions in Supercross, like really market-leading, clever, innovative work from individuals and teams. There is also some stuff that is really bad.
Very head-scratching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, to the extent that it's almost slightly strange to your point about head-scratching, is that how can people, that's not fair to call it people, how can organizations be so good at some things and not care so much about the others? And when we're talking about building brands and building value and building an ecosystem and really building something that other major non-endemic brands want to come and spend in and come and partner with, to have such a huge area of the sport basically dressing these 505 million fans in some of the worst merchandise that I've seen is interesting. But also, what an amazing opportunity again. So I kind of look at it like that. So yeah, I'm from a really diverse background and in sports. I'm really proud of the fact that I've got this opportunity to explore World Supercross as part of our kind of investment thesis of looking at sports around the world. And we've got a great team, and we're really beginning to build some headway. Yeah, we are. We're beginning to make it a little bit ours. I was really clear to everyone last year. I said, look, 2024 had to just be, we just had to do exactly what we said we were going to do. And for the first time ever, World Supercross finished a season. And I'm not saying 4 races is great to finish, but we just never done that before. Yeah. So it was no point talking about anything other than just do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
Deliver for those that have invested in this space, whilst also having an eye on the future. And now we're in a position where we've got the people, the really fantastic support from an ownership group that has put its trust in its executives and this idea and this sport. not to be disruptive, but to take the opportunity, and now begin to build out what that can look like for the fans around the world that want to engage in Supercross.
Yeah.
And because whilst that 500 million is somewhat soft, in that we both know that turning on 500 million fans is not plausible. What is there are 10 to 15 race markets around the world where I'm really confident I can put 30 to 40,000 fans in the stadiums.
Yeah.
And just from its absolute binary level, if there is a sport that is able to do that, then that sport has the right to go out and explore being a world championship. So, and I know that's a term that people
very loaded term in our industry.
It gets fired up. So let's call it for the sake of my view is we are the FIM World Championships and we need to own that.
Yeah.
And we are accredited in being so, and I pay money to sanction that. And I recognise that the term world culturally has different impacts in different sports in different places around the world. I'm going to own it here as well, that I appreciate that we are not the best series in the world. And let's look at those nuances. That the best racing is a championships is currently taking place here in the domestic championships in America.
But they also aren't racing in the world.
Yeah.
So I think that there's two ways that you can look at.
That's why I say cultural.
Yeah, exactly. So there's I agree with you on this point. So I will agree that the best racing in the world of Supercross happens in America.
Yeah.
But America isn't the world in the actual geographical definition of it. And if you have a championship that's going all over the world, that has a claim for being called the World Championship.
Sure. And then the responsibility I have is once I've built the ecosystem or the theatres, shall we say, then the responsibility is to put the best possible content within those theatres.
Yeah.
And, I recognise the past. I also recognise the loaded nature of what we're talking about. But again, if I have a very clear vision of building an ecosystem that helps manufacturers sell more bikes, and I've got a market where I know that I can put 30 to 40,000 fans, and I can service that by a wider digital ecosystem that can service across all of the diversity of dirt bikes, then I think I can have some fun in taking some of the best riders around the world to compete for that World Championships.
Yeah.
And our current world champions from the three so far, recognising what the series has been in the past, is, Kenny's pretty good, Eli's pretty good, Max has got a red plate, in 250 right now. Right now, I know they've been out there on their own, and the responsibility is that this should not be an exhibition tour for those world champions. And I recognise that it was Eli versus Ken last year to a certain extent.
And Vince.
And Vince.
Abu Dhabi. Vince really got in there, didn't he?
And that's indicative of where we've been and some of the work that I've been doing in this period of time, both running through last season and this season, is how that we can improve that.
Yeah.
And to the loaded nature of the humble disruptor, shall we call it, what we're not trying to do is compete. I believe that we can be supplementary and complementary. If we're really good at taking this sport around the world, more people will engage in the sport in America.
Oh, for sure.
And, we're never going to race May to June. So there's always, if we can go and create more fans in Argentina from Buenos Aires that then turn around, and we saw what happened in Cordoba this weekend, MXGP's turning on that audience fantastically well. If I can turn the Supercross audience on and the next time they turn around and go, I want to keep watching that guy, and he's racing in the US and there's 17 options for me to listen to in Spanish on an OTT network via Monster Supercross, then I've made some dollars for people. Again, I just believe that there's an ecosystem here where we can build value for everyone.
Yeah.
I absolutely appreciate lots of people don't agree with me.
Yeah. I mean, it's just going to be that's
100%.
It's the challenge that you guys are going to have.
Correct.
Going forward.
And by its nature, the disruption so far has done, and again, under a different guidance and management, but the disruption of the idea has created opportunity for some. Whether you like it or don't like it, SMX is here. And SMX, I think, World Supercross had a part to play in the creation of SMX. That has almost certainly got riders paid more money. And, it's in similar conversation we're seeing with golf right now. Nobody's necessarily won, but there has been opportunity where some people have come out better from this. And I think the fans of service would say, right now, some of the best racing that we've ever seen at 250 and 450 taking place in the US because of the quality of riders and the depth of the fields. Now, if we put SMX on top of that and we see what's happening with Fevre and Tim and Ramon in MXGP, and you then look at what we're trying to do rest of the world, what an opportunity for being fans right now, and what an opportunity to inspire the youth of tomorrow to go, this sport is incredible.
Yeah.
And that's what excites me. That's why I'm here. That's why I've come from a different sporting background and seen the opportunity that's here, which is that, yes, there are holes in my supercross and motocross knowledge that's littered all around. And my responsibility as a leader of organisation is to make sure that I put people around me that can get it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can help with the things that potentially come from a slightly different approach. And it's quite a cool time to be involved in the sport.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see, like, I mean, I was pretty vocal about the whole SMX thing and the World Supercross being a huge part of that. And you know, they'll say it was been in the works for a while, and it very well may have been, but it was very accelerated, and it really came in at the exact same time, and that was great. And I was also critical of like the playoffs in general, but it's great.
Sure,
I've been to them; they're awesome. I loved the extra racing. The fans loved the extra racing. You know, like even when the SMX started this year, I was like, dude, I'm actually
pumped.
Fucking stoked.
Yeah, and like, that's what a playoff should be, right?
Yeah, I'm very excited for these 3 rounds. And then it stopped and I was like,
yeah,
damn, my weekends aren't the same now. Yeah. And as a fan, that's what you should want. You know, like there's obviously a lot of like behind the scenes considerations, and you probably don't want guys risking their life 52 times a year. And there's all those conversations, but purely a fan going for a ride in the morning, washing your bike, coming home, SMX is on, fucking happy days.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what you want as a fan. The NFL, you have Monday night football, you have Thursday night football, you have Saturday college football, you have Sunday NFL. So it's like that is the world of sport these days, you know?
Yeah, and I think you're 100% right. I think as we move forwards, it's working through putting rider first and ensuring that there's the right amount for the riders, that service the manufacturers, that services the promoters, that services the fans. And fans will just consume until they stop consuming, and it becomes quite white noise. So recognizing that probably at this moment in time, actually having this very diverse portfolio of opportunity across indoors, outdoors, hybrids, all sorts, is actually servicing the fans in the best of ways, but it's probably not doing the same for some of the other parts of the business. But all sports right now are trying to work out what is the right cadence.
Yeah.
What is the product, whether it's a shorter form, a longer form. You know, we'll continue to play with formats. We'll see it, you know, whether they go Triple Crown or whether they go traditional here in the US. How we're changing formats slightly next year. No one's quite worked out what is the bit that captures people for the longest and is the most exciting format of. How many times can you go?
And you're also milking riders, you know, and it's like it's one of the hardest sports in the world.
Of course.
And there's such a select few that are elite and capable of winning, and it's like you've just got these prized thoroughbreds that you need to make sure. And look what's happened in the AMA this year, you know, like it's just insanely dangerous and risky for even the best guys to do it. So like even that's just such a hard balance to find.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And then we've got to find the balance of health, rider first, fan first, manufacturer, promoter ecosystem, the theatres that be, you know, how do riders look at where do I want to be riding? You know, what are the theatres that I want to ride in around the world?
Yeah, and what are like the factors that surround it that actually have nothing to do with racing?
Correct.
And I think that's probably another point for you guys is like you just, because there is like a AMA versus WSX thing that's going on from the jump, right? And I think that if you purely look at it from just like a racing, like, do I want to race this series or this series? It's like, that's also just not even the right question. And I think like for, let's say, Feld or you guys to look at it like that, it's just not even the right question because it's like, hey, does this guy like Europe?
Yeah.
Does this guy like traveling? Where's his wife from?
Yeah.
You know, what is she like? There's so many factors that go into where a guy will decide to race as well, you know?
Yeah, and those are the factors that I can't control. And then there's
neither can they.
And neither can they, yeah.
Yeah.
So they are so unique to the individual.
Yeah.
I think we also have to recognize that the battleground of best racing is not necessarily a battleground that it's worthwhile me pumping soldiers into right now. Actually, I've got to work out where on our series can we be the most innovative and what can we be the best at. So one, we already know, international, right?
Yeah.
And then speaking to those unique things. But how do we double down on that? What are the things digitally that we can do that is, as an IP-based sports that is talking to more people around the world that have got diversity of thought and spending power than a domestic series has? And what is the really cool products that sit around that? So that and what are the things that we can do in international markets for riders and manufacturers in a way that potentially Daytona to Indianapolis is not different enough that Monster is Monster there, but Monster in Argentina to Monster in Malaysia is fundamentally different. So what are those things that we can switch on so that when a humble podcaster comes and joins us, or a elite rider comes and joins us, or potentially a rider who is stepping away from racing outdoors to indoors for the first time, and how he gets excited by that. What are the things where he's like, they are so good at that. When you go on World Super, that stuff is great. And when fans come around and they watch our broadcast and our live streams or whatever that content is, they go, wow, they're good at that stuff. Because yes, I know, and I say this all the time to our entire team, the sport has to be at the heart of everything we do. So I absolutely recognize that we need to deliver world-class racing, but the sport is not enough. And if we think the sport is not enough, we'll fail. So I've also got to chase the other bits.
You're playing a zero-sum game there if that's the goal, you know, because like you're just not, maybe you never will, maybe you will in 10 years, maybe it's 5 years. Like that's such an open-ended and uncertain thing. So it's like, it's so zero-sum to where it's like, if we are we the best racing on the planet Earth in Supercross? Yes or no? No. Okay, lose. So it's like, you just can't play that game for a long period of time because it's way too zero-sum. And you can offer, like you said, the fans, the media, the riders, it's just such a different value add than this is the best place to come and race.
Yeah, whilst I will...
Or this is the best racing.
But this is the best race series. Whilst recognising, and you know, what I've done with the team deal this year and the way that we've restructured the engagement for, let's call it rider acquisition, talent on the track, we have to put out a better racing product than we've put out in previous years. It needs to be more competitive. It needs to have more people running up at the front. And it needs to go when you turn on as somebody that's more of an expert in the sport than me and go, that was a great race. We didn't have enough of those, and we've not had enough of those, and we need to make sure that we do.
What's the factors, do you think,
for
why you haven't had enough of those races?
I think we've probably had, you know, stretch fields where we've got insane talent that's sat at the front and not enough of it. We've had a pretty strong middle, and actually our middle, if you look at where the middle is currently in the US, it's not too dissimilar. You know, we've seen with Mitch and Joey and co, they're sort of sitting in a similar spot in the middle of that, and that just means they're a little bit higher in our group, which is a bit smaller, but that group's there. I asked Kurt Nickel, our VP of Race Dev, to do a piece of work for me to give me an idea of where we base the criteria. So let's say, I won't say what the criteria is, but a rider can be judged 1 to 10 based on performance that's taken place, titles, race wins, MXGP, domestic, AMA, etc.
Yeah.
Right? Like really binary. And if I can apply that to season 1, season 2, season 3 of World Supercross, are we slowly getting better? Right. And if you apply the same criteria to an AMA Supercross event, where are they and where does that... It gives me some comparisons. It's my internal piece.
Yeah.
And we have got better every year.
It's actually quite smart.
I hope so.
Yeah, I like it.
We have got better every year, so I can absolutely gauge where we need to go. I do know where the difference between the AMA's average rider number is to what my average rider number is. I do know where I need to bridge that gap. We're never going to bridge it all the way to be in the same number. Based on where we are today, where AMA is, what is the number I need to get to say that we've got world-class racing each week and it'll be competitive and you'll see different winners. I know what we need to do this year. And I think we've got a good shot at that. That number will still be lower than the AMA in 2025. And we may walk 10 years down the line, who knows what that is. But we just need to be very clear on what is world-class racing to service the 35, 40,000 fans. And look, we had 1 million people watch the Vancouver race.
Really?
Yeah. 1 million, we've put up our broadcast numbers today, right? So 150% year-on-year growth on our broadcast viewership.
Where is that on Instagram?
Probably went up on LinkedIn, actually.
Oh, okay.
Like corporate comms.
Yeah.
So that went up today. And that's a really interesting number because
it's massive.
It's huge. One, North American time zone, so clearly that's switched on the US fans that are already here. We know it's a good market. Abu Dhabi kind of got the viewership that Abu Dhabi deserved. I've spoken really honestly about this. We need to be racing Supercross. And I know your views on what Abu Dhabi is, potentially not Supercross event, right?
Yeah.
And,
brilliant place. A place that I think is amazing for Supercross and can do well there, but I just think it, obviously needs to be a more Supercross race.
100%. You'll find it on my LinkedIn, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And so Abu Dhabi's amazing. They are, Athara are, if not the best, one of the best Formula One promoters in the world. They've built an event there which is incredible.
Oh, it's wild, dude.
They looked after us like, nobody could have looked after us. But we won't be racing in Abu Dhabi in 2025. And we've got to be really clear strategically. If you look at it as an IP fan growth business, we need to race in markets where 30 to 40,000 fans are in stands, in Supercross, be really clear who we are so that we can talk to non-endemic brands around the world and be really, what is World Supercross? It's that.
Yeah, and what is Supercross?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Just to have the tag to say it's Supercross.
It's
it has
Thomas
to be
Burwell, by the way. Just so I know what you're looking for.
Thomas Burwell. Sorry, Griff.
And we just absolutely really clear on who we are.
Yeah.
So that when I give you a really good example. I struggled with our Canada event. It was our first time I'd ever been to a Supercross event, right?
That's crazy.
And I wasn't, let's not call it head in hands, but there were moments where I was
not stoked
and confused by what we were trying to be. The way I'll explain it is that there was this almost white noise to what was going on. It was too quick, as in between races. It was a bit more too relentless. The music was too loud. The MC was too loud, and there was just no cut through. And I was like, how can I explain to our team, I think we suck, without damning everything that we've been trying to do? And the racing was pretty good. The fans were amazing. 17,500, largest ever in Canada. So much good stuff that was happening. But I knew that's not a product that was going to succeed. And the way that I did that was if I bought a non-endemic brand, let's pick Emirates, big sponsor of sport. If I bought the CMO of Emirates, Boutros, to that 3-hour event, he would have had a great time, like even I did, and like everybody did. And he would have said to me, I had no idea what went on.
What was going on.
What was going on.
Yeah.
And if we can't answer that question really, really simply and clearly, we will not drive non-endemic dollars. And so going back to that point, what is World Supercross? World Supercross needs to be in major markets, major stadiums, in front of 20 to 40,000 fans with a real clarity in product, both in racing and in what its entertainment offering is, surrounded by really, really good digital content. And if we can do that, before we've even got into the granularity of the innovation, we know we'll be successful. Now, what does success look like? Everybody will have different barometers for that, but we know we will be successful. And those barometers do include being an opportunity for manufacturers to sell more bikes, right? And if we can do that in this day and age, it is challenging, right? And there is only so many marketing dollars that can be spent. And I appreciate that more marketing dollars will always be spent here in the US because more bikes are sold here in the US. But equally, global funding and the way funding is kind of spread will happen if we build the ecosystem. And come back to, that's what the opportunity is. But we just got to be really good at it. We don't have a margin for error. We don't have a margin for error. Yeah, I sort of, last year was almost our bridging year. We got given the opportunity because we'd gone through a changeover of ownership, management, all those things.
You might remember Dr. Steve Andrews from episode 219. He's an orthopedic surgeon who's treated a lot of the riders that we've had on the show. Steve's company, Rygg, is a sports medicine brand launching with 2 game-changing products, a pre-sport performance cream called Heat and a post-sport recovery gel called Cool. Think of Heat as an advanced muscle rub designed to improve muscle performance, endurance, and stamina. Cool, on the other hand, is a recovery gel that assists post-exercise recovery and relieves mild joint inflammation. Both products are ARTG listed, meaning that their benefits are backed by evidence, not hype. Many of us are familiar with the testing that goes into supplements that we eat and drink, but we often overlook the products that are applied to our skin. Transdermal absorption is when substances can pass through the skin, and that's why Rygg has gone the extra mile, becoming one of the first brands in Australia to offer informed sports certified topical creams customized for athletes. You already know how important it is to be mindful of what you put into your body. Now it's time to be just as mindful of what you're applying to your skin. Steve and the team are committed to delivering quality products that aren't only for athletes, but anyone wanting to level up their performance and recovery. Check them out at rygg.com.au, and you can follow them on socials at rygg.oz as well. And of course, when using Rygg products, always read the label and follow the directions before use. Actually have this on my shoulder right now. No, it's cool. And I think from our conversations, that's what I've really stressed is I just think that the mass appeal, I'd always tell the story of riding through Vietnam in the back, way in the back, on the border of Laos, and you're just cruising through these just beautiful winding roads. There's people living in basically huts off the side of the highway, and you'll ride past a little house and you'll just see a little kid run inside and come out on his Repsol scooter. Yeah. And he's got the full Repsol with the monster sticker on it, and he's trying to drag his knee next to you. It is such a global thing, just the love of 2 wheels. And for the rest of the world, way more so than what you would say, the Western world. Yep. 2 wheels is life. That is all the family has. That's the work truck. It's the family vehicle. It's, you can be riding through parts of Asia and see 7 people on a scooter. Yeah. It's such a fundamental part of life. And I think that there's a very real passion around the motorcycle and 2 wheels. And if you can visit those places and ignite that passion in people with amazing racing, I really think that's the true potential of WSX.
I do, and I think one of the things that we've got to be really clear on, though, is it's not going to those markets and then transactionally turning them on as a live events business. But the bottom of those stones is our foundation, which is where we've got to be really good. That's where we win. That is where we win. We don't win just by putting on world-class events. And my success, or our success at the end of this year, won't be judged solely internally by us on, did we sell out these events? Because even if we did, that won't necessarily be enough. We've got to be more than that. And we're not even racing in Brazil yet. I've got 3 target markets that we're not racing in at the moment. Now, we're almost there. My goal is to announce the 2026 season during the 2025 season, right? Not even at the end, before that, so that everybody is very clear rolling into next year. We know what World Supercross is doing, and we know the windows that they're going to be working in. But you think, we haven't turned Brazil on yet. Wild fan group there, and we've done a lot of work on
that's maybe one of the biggest markets.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly sits alongside Australia as a non-North American market that's got real opportunity, not just as a 2-wheel, but as a motorsport market in general. Yeah. Really exciting. We haven't switched Japan on yet, and clearly, for all of the reasons that we know in this sport, this business, both from fandom all the way up to the B2B place, we need to be racing in Japan, but we need to be doing it at the appropriate time.
Yeah.
Japan probably more than anything understand the quality of racing and all the things that go with that, and some of the scarring of the past. So, we're not trying to grow at a speed which is not the appropriate speed. We're trying to be world class at what we do, recognizing one of the things that was stressed to me by our teams and our fans and our broadcasters and everyone is like, Tom, this needs to be a world championship that moves around the world. And that was goal number one for me for 2025. Build a world championship that is representative of travel.
Yeah, that can basically like carry that name and carry it and defend the statement.
Correct. In stadiums, very clear on what our product is.
Yeah.
So that's a step forward. That's a step forward and one we're excited to get behind.
So to just backtrack even further, why Supercross? You represent
is the Invesco.
Yeah, so you represent for people that don't understand how this all works. You're not a guy that is just like, I love Supercross. Let's do a world championship.
No.
So there's an investment company that has live sport as like businesses that it represents or that it like owns and runs.
Yeah.
So why Supercross in general for the fan that might be like, okay, I know why I love this.
Sure.
But why does this $1 billion business love this?
The answer to that is probably not one that fans necessarily love. It is because of the number of fans, right? As much as we think this sport is incredible and it does all the things that we've just spoken about, there is this piece here, which is there are a
fuck ton of people that like it.
Yeah, and that are relatively underserviced.
Yeah.
I.e., before I raced in Buenos Aires, there wasn't a race in Buenos Aires.
Yeah. Can't say that about soccer.
Correct.
Can't say that about football.
How many sports with that 500 million touch points of participants and all those things can you say that are currently underserviced? Most of them are overserviced somewhat. Most of them are overserviced. And even if I take out, let's say I take out the entire US audience and say that's being serviced elsewhere, it's still hundreds of millions of people. So for us, we have, we obviously have a football club in England, which is a slight anomaly to the thesis of tribal fandom via the lens of league IP, because it's obviously club owned and somewhat dictated by the performance of what takes place on the field. And in English soccer, more than anywhere in the world, with promotion and relegation, and 1 minute you can be a very wealthy club and the next minute you cannot be, and you're probably better spending money on players than you are on anything else. But our thesis remains the same, and it applies to that, which is that Sunderland Football Club is the 6th largest stadium in the Premier League. It's got 40,000 season ticket holders. It is incredibly tribal, passionate, all the things that we've said, and actually you can apply that to a football club. It's an incredibly, incredibly special club, and one that we look at, which again is loads and loads of fans that at the time when we took ownership were underserviced because they hadn't been serviced in what we deemed to be a world-class appropriate way for supporters of a soccer club to the size of that. And now when we begin to look at other league level IP, it's the same process. So we've got an executive team that have sat across global sports. So Luisa Fernandez from Formula One.
Yeah.
Our CFO
she's a legend.
Yeah, she's awesome, right? We have the CFO from Formula E. We have a chief commercial guy who's a sort of our revenues and partnerships guy who's come from both the NFL and soccer. So he's got like a really diverse team-based background. And then a CIO that comes from the betting industry that looks really at basically sports opportunities. And that business also then zooms in to accelerate what is either an underserviced asset, an asset that needs to get to business as usual, or in some cases, it's just a lot of these businesses, a lot of these sports are too big to let's say fail, but not big enough to kick on and accelerate and really succeed because they've got to be eyes down. They're concentrating on today and they don't have much of an opportunity to look through the telescope as tomorrow. So what we see as our business opportunity is also to bring in a really world-class executive team, a proprietary platform that is able to accelerate those businesses and actually move it down the line. And then we can zoom back out and then just support the business, which is much more like we are at Sunderland.
I was going to say, that sounds a lot like what happens at the football club.
Correct.
Yeah.
But
it's only after a period of time,
correct.
Processes are in place.
100%.
And then it just runs.
And you've built a world-class executive team in place there. Now, where we are at the moment is that BSG, which is our holdco, is fully zoomed in on World Supercross to an extent that we are the executive team of WSX. and that means that we're probably more hands-on than we will be in any other asset. But I think also to kind of underline just how important and the opportunity we see in Supercross is that we've invested in those people and in that platform, and then put all of those people and that platform into this sport, and then built around that. And we wouldn't be doing that if we hadn't just looked at it through the hard nose of a business opportunity and said, wow, this motocross market is a really special one.
No, it's cool. No, and it's cool to hear that perspective, because I think in the industry, it's so inside driven. Like you grow up, right? Like I'm the perfect example. Dad grew up racing. My mum's brother, mum's side of the family. So like both sides of my family, bikes. Sure. All I've ever known is bikes my whole life. Then you grow up through it, not good enough to race. Okay, you get a job in the industry. You're working at Fox, you're working at Feld, so it's so inside out in a way. And it's very, very unique in that, in the way that it works like that, I think, and very unique to maybe a lot of other professional sports.
It is. And I think we have to be,
which is one of the things I think that holds it back at times too, which is worth saying.
I think there's two sides to it, isn't there? Is that I think one side of that is that we have to be really humble and recognise any of our diversity in sporting history is kind of irrelevant, right? As we come through the door, if you try and say that this square peg is going to fit in this round motocross hole, we'll get run out of town because people will just not want to work with us.
Yeah.
We've got to build relationships. We've got to build business relationships. We've got to build human relationships with the people that have been in this industry, which is ultimately feels like a family industry for so long, and learn about this sport and learn about what makes it tick, and then earn the right to innovate within it. Okay, World Supercross, slightly more blank canvas, so we can be potentially a bit heavier footed with ourselves, but reference, when I'm spending time here in the US, or I'm spending time in other major markets, or with people that have put on exhibition events around the world, who am I to say that things should change? I don't have a right to say that. I've not earned that right. I used to say it on the rugby field. You've got to earn the right to go wide. No.
Yeah.
And I apply that mantra still now, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
that's funny.
And we've got to build those relationships and build it with those people. So that's with agents, that's with riders, that's with recognize that whilst some of the activating brands are very intrinsic and endemic, and I want to look at how we expand that kind of well of people spending money in this sport because of the sheer numbers of people, that there are also some really cool things taking place from the endemic brands. And I say that because I think that the bring an empty can to get into the fan zone from Monster is one of the coolest activations in any sport around the world.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, because porridge rights are a real challenge, right? So if you're a global sport that's moving from stadium to stadium to stadium, every single stadium is going to have a different set of porridge rights.
Yeah.
So if you think that every single stadium, also every single brand sponsor that's in the FMCG or alcohol space, they're going, how are you doing can in hand? How are you making somebody drink? If you can guarantee that there's 15,000 people in your fan zone and they've all bought you an empty can, whether they've bought it from the petrol station down the road is irrelevant.
Or the stadium, who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah.
And I keep saying I'd never come across that before. Absolute chapeau to Aaron and everybody at the Monster Group and to Feld for that. I think it's really, really cool. And that's what I mean, right? Is that things have been shaped and have come through in different ways in this sport. And I've got to learn as much from them as I hope down the line some of the things that we can do can help to innovate and show people that they can be done in a different way. And as we begin to bring in different brands that want to turn on a global audience and want to speak to a global audience and want to do it in a slightly different way to the way that the endemics do, I think that naturally puts a bit of competitive pressure on fan zones, digital content, so that you begin to see people change. When we launch our calendar imminently, we also launched the complete rebrand of World Supercross. And I think that, as is always the case when you rebrand something, there'll be naysayers. But it has been built and designed purposely for a modern sports and entertainment brand that can speak in commercial ways, content ways, and has viability in different ways of speaking, whether that's through streaming, broadcast, whatever it be, live. And we've obviously tested it with large numbers of fan groups, brands, manufacturers, corporates, businesses. And some of the more traditional are like, what's this? But then when you walk them through and help them understand why we're doing what we're doing, and also when they say, well, we don't think that's going to work, listen and actually make evolutions and changes, suddenly what we've got is a really, really big group of people who go, we know what you're doing now. That feels great. So I think it's amazing. I think it's incredible. And I think it's a piece of work that Louisa and her team have been doing for the past 6 or 7 months, which is really, really going to be a kind of flag in the ground for how I think this sport should be represented, like in that fashion. And it's not like some of the things that have come in the past, both from us and from other assets. Naturally, people will shoot at it a little bit because it's different. But I also think people will go, okay, wow, I see what they're trying to do. And that, again, is just, it's little things that help us go down the route of going, well, we don't behave in the way that others do because we can't, but also because we don't want to. But we've got to listen, and we've got to be humble enough to know that we don't know it all ourselves.
And so that's a complete, like, visual branding, the whole thing. Yeah.
The whole thing.
Like formats, or like what else are you?
Yeah, so I mean, do you mean race formats?
No, just like in terms of like the whole rebrand,
Yeah,
like
the whole thing. Brand guidelines, broadcast, streaming, digital content, the media network itself, the way that we talk to audiences, from the WSX piece of it. Try and say WSX in Spanish or Portuguese. You can't.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know.
No, but S and X are 2 letters that don't come out nearly as well. WSX, which sounds like a very easy to say for a Western language, is actually much harder than World Supercross in other languages. So again, when you're building a global brand, you got to consider all of those pieces. We've gone for a real journey on that, and also I think recognizing that shouldn't just be a brand slap. It needs to be something that can kind of evolve and be applied in different formats and in different ways. And how, I don't know, a global sponsor wants to use it on digital content in a B2B engagement, speaking to audiences aged 25 to 35. It needs to have the adaptability to also be speaking to mums and inspiring kids on a track. Talk about this legacy fund that I want to create in all of our markets. So as a World Championships, we're obviously able to engage host cities and governments to bring us in, because there's a return on the investment, whether that's taxation dollars, whether that's hotel nights, whether that's visitation, whatever those KPIs be. But in keeping with us being more than just the transactional event itself, I really want to invest part of that fund, however we're sort of funded to come into market, into the local participation in sport. So whether there's a local track in a particular race, and it will be different in every market, how are we investing on a year-on-year basis into facilities, and into training, or whether that is bringing one of our riders into market a few days earlier for actual engagement with them on tracks, because that inspiration aspiration model as a world championship, we have a responsibility for. So whilst, yes, we are a franchise, and whilst we are all of those things, we actually need to invest in that space. Now, if I can turn around and do that and invest some of my host city dollars into that space, and then I turn around to our local partners or our global partners in each of those MACs and go, why don't you match the percentage? So if I'm putting 1% of that in, you put 1% of that in, and we'll create this fund. That's now an annual fund that is invested, and people can come to us and go, we'd like to spend $20,000 on facilities at X track. Which
makes a crazy difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, how hard was that for me to do?
Yeah, not very hard.
Not at all. Apart from that, there'll be people in my team go, Tom, it's harder than you think it is. No, I appreciate it's harder.
Not hard for you personally. Yeah.
For me to say it now. But in general, and the impact that has.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that if we use the UK, I'll go back slightly, and this is very much through the lens of the UK, because it's when I was growing up, but I'll try and make it sort of a bit more international. When you're growing up, we had 4 terrestrial TV channels, pretty much similar for everybody, right? and the BBC, ITV, and Channel 4. And those channels decided what sports were mainstream. Now, whether that's Olympics, in our case in Australia, cricket,
rugby,
traditional, normally in our case, sort of Commonwealth empirical sports.
Yeah.
And if you were a motocross fan or participant, you were probably somewhat marginalised because
100%.
you had to stay up until 2 a.m. to watch on Channel 4. You put posters up on your walls because you got the magazine that you probably had to be a subscriber to because you couldn't find it in the newsagents. And then your mates at school were like, you're a bit of a weirdo because you're not following the same things that we're following. All dictated to by really the 4 media rights partners that sit in the middle of it because they're the ones telling you what you have to watch. Well, marginalisation's changing because let's say I'm consuming rugby, you're consuming dirt bikes. We're both consuming it the same way now by what's in our pockets. So the marginalisation doesn't really count so much anymore because you turn around and go, look how cool this is.
Yeah.
And I go, look how cool this is.
And the creation of it has been democratized as well.
100%. So if you then go to that kid in the UK, what that hasn't necessarily, and this is actually across participation sports in general, that engagement hasn't seeped down completely to growing participation numbers at the bottom, in part because the content creator has not cared as much. So what you've done is you've almost skipped the content creator piece because traditionally it was the person at the track, inspired person to get onto the bike. He flowed through the track and then engaged in the top. Well, now he can be skipped out because we've got this thing in our pocket. So I have a responsibility, I believe, to try and bring that loop back round and ensure that if I race in London, then the sport of motocross and supercross benefits from me being in London with little Johnny and little Laura and the families to actually feel it. And if I can build fandom via that version as well, I'm better off.
Yeah, I guess you just have to be incentivized in the right way to do it because that's just generally not how capitalism works. That's like a very idealistic version of capitalism. And it's just up to a single person to, like you say, to just make the call and be like, okay, we'll get some of this profit and we'll give it back. But I guess generally speaking, that's not how capitalism works.
Other than the fact that if you look at what global partnerships, commercial partnerships are really to truly move a needle, they will have a associated value based on media values, sponsorship values, above the line rights. They will almost certainly have a CSR value associated with it as well. So when I talk about, am I not being capitalist? How do I get the most money out of a host city possible? How do I get the most money out of a partner possible? I do all these things.
Yeah.
And, there'll be a number where I don't come out worse from doing it, I assure you.
And that's what I mean by you hopefully the incentives align.
Sure.
Because that's how this whole thing should work is there should be incentives for people to then focus on the bottom. But like you said, it's pretty easy to just skip that part.
Really, really easy. And again, but it's easier for me to not skip it when I'm starting from where I'm starting from. Much harder if you were starting with loads of stuff in your balance sheet and you were servicing in a traditional way and you suddenly turn around and I started as a CEO of a different organisation.
Well, 50,000 people are going to rock up to the stadium whether you do it or not.
Correct.
You go there for the last 50 years. Yeah. It's easy for that shit to go by the wayside.
And it's £1 today, 10 tomorrow type stuff. And you become the CEO that people support for, say, 18 months and then they eventually go, oh, my God, this guy's got an agenda.
Yeah.
My agenda is absolute, is to be successful at World Supercross. But for us to be successful at World Supercross, I think we have to look at it through a slightly different lens.
Yeah, I think, and I've said this to you before as well, I think for you guys to be successful, you need to impact the culture. Mm-hmm. There is a culture of dirt bikes and there's a culture of motorcycle racing. And if you can positively influence that culture, that's your ticket in there, and I think that's what we do. We try and positively impact the culture. People can tune in, listen to this, every day of the week, multiple times a week, there'll be new content around the sport that they love and it adds value. And I think it's as simple as that across the board, whether you're a business, whether you're a content creator, whether you're an athlete, it's just literally what value can you add? And if you impact the culture, then you will naturally get staying power from that. And I think that you guys are just going to service a part of this culture that just hasn't been serviced before,
Yeah, and you're right. We sort of said at the very top, isn't it? It's about that value and how you create it. And I see it every day. I probably engage in different forms of content, and I consume my sports in different ways, quite often via a lens of what's happening in the business world of sport. And a good example is I have done some road cycling, taking part in sport and keeping fit, and probably doing things that some people think are a bit mad is absolutely part of me as a person, socially and all sorts. But I was never into cycling growing up as a Tour de France type sport. Again, similar to this, right? Marginalisation wasn't on, etc.
Yeah.
I absolutely, once I started riding a bike in South Africa, I got into consuming cycling via podcasts, etc., which meant that I naturally had it on television more. And now my 7-year-old daughter talks about Tadej Pogačar, right? Of which she will also start talking about Eli Tomac and Ken Roczen.
That's crazy.
And, she's a 7-year-old girl who goes to school in Chelsea in the centre of London. She couldn't be more detached from either the Alps mountains or motocross.
Yeah. You ain't the demo, sweetheart.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely not, little blonde girl. Yeah. But isn't it funny, because that's an example of how things have changed so much, but are the same. So you got into riding because your dad was riding. My daughter knows who Tadej Pogačar is, ultimately because dad was consuming content about Tadej Pogačar, which meant that the television got the Tour de France on.
And then you get into the algorithm, it starts getting recommended.
Yeah, 100%. This is the game we play. I'm so excited for our race season, however far away it is, and I still love live sport. But our excitement, you come back to why are we involved in this sport and why are we involved in other sports, is these are really, really great businesses to try and solve and grow and build ecosystems where everybody can thrive.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting time in sport too, right? Like Dana White made billions of dollars with the UFC, like personally made close to $1 billion, I'm pretty sure, out of the sale.
Yeah.
And what has he done since? Bought more fucking live sport.
Yeah.
So like there's something there. There's something that's like very attractive to somebody who already even has a lot of money.
Yep.
Like there is something to be said about the product of these live sports, and it's very similar to what the business that you guys are in, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, how many assets around the world can directly speak to people via tribal communication? And I'm not saying that we're trying to take people down journeys and pathways and ask them to do things that they don't want to do. But there's a reality that if you build true fandom, you can direct fandom to make business and commercial decisions in different ways. And that's what we've seen with, as you say, UFC and TKO and WWE, and now ultimately the what they've announced today in Saudi Arabia and the new boxing league.
Oh, really?
So Dana and TKO under the TKO day to day. So both sides of the UFC and the WWE side have gone into business with Turkey Al Sheikh, for a new form of a boxing league out of Saudi Arabia, creating a new promotion. Now think about that. Turkey Al Sheikh is already in business with the main promoters from around the world who have all boxed in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And he today has announced a new promoter.
I didn't know that.
And not a new form of boxing, but a new way of promoting boxing alongside MMA and sports, let's call it sports entertainment, which, by the way, I think if there is an organisation that we should all be following on how to best transactionally move a fan and also create content, the WWE is the best in the business. The best in the business. So they've merged all of that, brought boxing in as well. And Dana started out as a boxer, a massive full circle moment for him. And like you say, it's the application of many of the same methodologies. And on our small sense, and I appreciate hundreds of millions is not small sense to a lot, but our small sense within this world is we have a very clear vision of what we see with sport. And those methodologies can be applied to multiple assets to create growth. And funny enough, our incubator for innovation is World Supercross.
Yeah.
So, a lot of what we want to do elsewhere, we're going to be first of all doing in World Supercross, whether that's microtransactions in streaming, whether that's what we do in betting, whether that's what we do with the architecture around data and insights and understanding fandom. We're going to do all of that here in Supercross because it's not currently done here by anyone.
Yeah.
So we know we can accelerate quite quickly.
Yeah.
And then actually take those models, and then how do you apply potentially 80, 90% of that and roll that out into other sporting spaces?
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense because there's no data. Like, it's just a clean slate. So it's like you can use this as basically a testing ground. There's no real competition in a sense, and there's just no kind of past history in a way.
Even the insight stuff that we've done to this point about looking at the sort of 4 areas, we've got like Marvel makers, these people that enjoy watching two-wheel dirt bike sport whilst they're playing e-gaming, and they're watching it on Twitch, and it just kind of fits what they're engaging and how they're consuming. That person's never coming out of his living room or his bedroom, right? So
yeah, he's never going to an event.
He's never going to an event. Yeah. So I've got to speak to him in a different way. And then you've got the family thrill seeker who is really going because little Johnny and little Laura want to be entertained for a 2-3 hour event. Now, when they're in Vancouver, they do not care what happens in San Jose the following week.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so we know that for a fact. Then you've got the adrenaline junkies, which again is a kind of a hybrid. They don't care too much what's going on, but they consume it. It's around them. It's probably in their algorithm because it's in there along with Red Bull cliff jumping, FMX, all of the things that you and I know. They're touch points. They're kind of fired up. Probably not too dissimilar to what you and I would have been, which would have been you would have been racing on your dirt bike in your 20s. I'd have been skiing out in the back mountains, and funny enough, there would have been a middle area of content that we would have consumed that would have been really, really similar to one another.
Yeah.
Now, when I come into town, I got to switch those guys on. Those guys got to want to come, spend some money in hospitality, just really enjoy themselves as the best 3 hours in sport. And then there's the in the jeans, which is you and your dad.
Yeah, the super endemic.
Super endemic.
Follow the series. We'll know the points. Remember who won the championship in.
Tell us when we're wrong.
Yeah.
And they're just as important.
Don't fuck with my sport.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And also recognise that you've got to really respect them, because you've got to respect where the sport's come from to take the sport to where it needs to go or where we want it to go. But if you upset and you dislodge and you disrupt too much and you end up pulling and pushing, what that might do, it might not stop you going to where you want to go to, but it certainly will slow you down.
Oh, just a waste of fucking energy.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to be arguing with anyone.
Even what happened this week with the fucking Ricky Daniel Blair thing, you're just like, dude, does the sport really need this? Like, it seems like a lot.
Yeah, and I think that when you come to that, we said at the beginning, at the top of this, we were talking about like loaded questions and what other people's perceptions and so on might be. That's why I come back to the fact that like our mission statement is supplementary. Our mission statement is not combative in any way. Our mission statement is that genuinely that can make everybody else richer in experience, richer in dollar. And with that, I'm not interested in bumping into people in a fan festival and arguing what way is the wrong way and what way is the right way. We're all going about it in the way that we do. I recognise that we've got to be really, really good and we don't have a margin for error. But if we do that, I think that we can be really complementary to what's happening elsewhere in the world.
What has the pushback been? Like, how hard is it on a day-to-day basis?
It's getting better now.
Yeah.
I had to be pretty thick-skinned for the first 6 months.
Yeah.
And that was globally. I'm pretty good at doing race deals, right? Like
in terms of the stadiums, the countries,
and like getting host city money, building relations with promoters. In some case, selling the rights to a promoter for the promoter then to go and deliver the race. They take on all the risk. They take on all the upside. We've got lots of different models about how you build that out, right? Whether you sell the IP or you take the opportunity to be the promoter. We've got there are manufacturers that potentially are scarred from not even just the relationship with World Supercross, but relationships with others and things that have happened that perhaps World Supercross was a incendiary part of that. So we get kind of grabbed in as the thing that sort of set it on fire. Partners, hosts, fans, reporters, Feld, AMA.
So just a bunch of
everyone. The way I talked about it first 4 or 5 months, and I'd say to Kirill, who's ultimately our chairman, the first 10 minutes of every meeting would be like getting punched in the face. Traditionally my nature is to just have a really constructive but be comfortable having the difficult conversation.
Yeah.
But
I think that's a very British thing too, like just straight to the point. I find that here with some people too. Like I have to have the conversation like, wait, just tell me to fuck off. Say your idea is shit and it's never going to happen. Don't not talk to me or don't, we can figure this out. This ain't a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a different style, like a different approach.
It's definitely a cultural thing.
Yeah.
And, but people needed to get it off their chest.
Yeah, fair.
That I definitely saw that. Even like journalists, they needed to tell me where we were wrong and where we've been wrong in the past, irrespective, and where they hadn't been accredited. And I needed to be told about that. And I realised quite quickly that I just had to take my licks there. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, there is just a period of time that I have got no right to be anything other than the listener to this. And at some point I'll grow a bit...
It's like a bad relationship, Like you fucked up and then you're just like, you know what? I just got to sit here and just cop
take it, yeah.
Wait, is there any monsters over there, Griff? Yeah, dude, I can imagine.
Yeah, so and then now...
Thanks, bro.
I think the pushback... Look, absolutely the pushback's still there. And some of the relationships are not as strong as I'd like them to be. And I think we've probably got at least another year of being really clear to the market that we're here to stay and we're going to do it the way that we're going to do it and that they can trust us. And I think that's not just for my partners, but that's for partners of our teams. That's for the manufacturers with those teams. They all have got to build this level of trust back. I think maybe the relationship with me has now got to a point where they're like, I'm comfortable listening to Tom and I believe he's doing what he says he's going to do. But that doesn't necessarily mean they trust it enough to start spending their dollars with, I don't know, Bud Racing in France. So, and if Bud Racing is not able to drive the French commercial dollars for racing in WSX yet, then that is having a direct impact on one of my partners, and in which case I'm probably having to make some decisions elsewhere. So, we have still got to go through a cycle. We've obviously got some race markets where there's some really great exhibition events as well. So there's probably some confusion in market about what is the World Championship, what's an exhibition event, and we've got to go through that. And that's more of an education, and that's an education of fan, partner, rider, promoter, ghost, government, host city, all of those things. And I've certainly felt, having had the season behind us and having been able to spend Q1 now really doubling down on building those relationships, people beginning to understand who we are. But absolutely, we'll need at least another year.
There's going to be value there for a fan, regardless of all the other stuff. And I think that a couple of years of doing that completely changes the game. But people just go off action over word, which is just in life in general.
In life in general, and given what action has come out of World Supercross, previously, and what inaction in some cases, and chaos to a certain extent. Some of it made of our own doing, and some of it made by the situation that they found themselves in, meant that
there was one guy that fucked you. And he had nothing to do with bikes. He didn't come from the industry, and just one dude that thought he knew because he had success in one place, and he fucked it for the whole thing. I know you can't speak on that,
no,
but it's
I can't speak on that. I can. What I will say, and Kirill and I talk about this. We would have loved the opportunity to have been the first through the door.
Yeah.
Because if we were going into season 4 having done 3 years in the way that we're talking about doing it now, what a cool place we'd all be in.
Yeah.
But it's eyes down, it's grind it out, it's do the work. We'll get there eventually. The way I talk about it is I probably started 30 yards behind where they started at the beginning, and I'm now probably back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And now I go and do it our way, and I've probably earned the right for people to go, yeah, we'll give him his opportunity. And And look, I still, this weekend I'm excited to spend time with manufacturers and some of our teams and some of the other teams, and I've really enjoyed being in the paddock. And I've also, speaking frankly, I really enjoy being here in Southern California, where it's this heartland of the sport. It feels very mainstream here. I sat with you in San Clemente and somebody pulls over and says he loves the show. And, that's a really cool part of the world for this sport. Again, as we go back to what we're looking to do, globally, is how can we create little pockets of that in spaces where we're creating great content and we're really engaging those people and we're making these superheroes. Because what they love at the moment is that they love the sport and they very clearly want to see the best in the world, but they haven't necessarily got idols yet. A guy on a blue bike and a guy on a red bike and a guy on a yellow bike battle it out to the very top, and they are considered best in the world, and the guy wins it, points battle or whatever. That'll create idols. That'll create monetary opportunities for those riders, but it will also create, heroes for the youngsters in those areas. That's what taking sport there does. They don't, heroes from afar watch through a screen with a poster on the wall. It's not the same I remember the first time I saw Tiger Woods at St Andrews. You're like, oh man, like Tiger Woods is legit. Like,
yeah.
And whereas before, you clearly watched him do all these great things,
but it didn't necessarily create the
hit home until you do it. And that's the responsibility we have. And also, I've said it to a lot of the riders' agents, because the riders are, I appreciate you coming racing on World Supercross, certainly in the new model with the teams and the way that we're moving away from central contracts to an incentivized model and deploying funds through the teams and so on. But the riders can still get paid well by coming and racing World Supercross. Certainly like a per race fee that, is right up there. But that's not enough. And I've also been trying to stress to agents, look, you need to be getting it into your contracts that you're suddenly opening up these riders to a load more other eyeballs, to international brands that you've already got, and also be getting into these markets ahead of me and turning them on with the fandom that comes with your fans. Certain riders have got huge followings. There is monetary value that you can turn on the Buenos Aires.
Yeah, but that's more work, Tom.
Yeah. You sound like some
that's a lot more work, mate. Why would I do a lot more work?
It is. I suppose I agree with that. But if riders want to be,
I agree with you.
I know you do. But there's a 17-year-old right now who I believe and I think Bob Walker's doing an amazing job, and I think the family's doing a great job. I think they have an opportunity to create a global superstar.
100%.
Right? And that global superstar will require work. Clever, innovative work. And if they do that in 10 years' time, when he's still only 27, and let's say he's got no injuries, and I hope he's not, I think that kid could be our first truly out of sport superstar. And that comes with that work. And hopefully what that happens is when you see agents and you see families and groups of people doubling down on what's going to take to do that, you're going to see more and more of these guys decide to go and do that around the world. I mean, Jet and Hunter are already doing that. They are an absolute credit to the sport in going back to Australia, going back to their homeland.
Dude, it was fucking huge.
Yeah.
Like, I got goosebumps from that. Like, the opening ceremonies at home was just crazy, bro. And, like, the impact, I don't even think they got it before they went. Yeah. That it's just like, dude, this is fucking insane. And this is so valuable and important. And I'd said it before, but I'd had conversations with Lucas about like, hey man, like they're not on TV. This is before I moved to America. I was like, they're not on TV. They're never on the news. Jet just got a perfect season. Nowhere. Yeah. Like this is news in Australia. When I was growing up, every time Casey Stoner won a world championship, anytime Mark Webber won a Formula One race, like it was on TV. Yeah. We fucking knew about this. Like this has to be a priority because it feels like it's a small thing. Yeah. Oh, they're winning in Australia. They're winning in America. They're massive in America. Like we just don't need Australia. It's such a small market. It's like, bro, 50,000 actual people, 50,000 true fans that really love and adore you and giving you that legitimate energy. That is worth a lot. I think we we're in an era now where, especially with like Instagram, and you're like, oh, I got 1 million followers.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Yeah, and it's just like,
Do you realize what that really means?
yeah, and it's like, okay, 50,000 people in a stadium that have paid to be, that's a fucking lot of people, you know, and it just gets diluted by maybe the numbers on the screen of like it's 1 million followers or 30,000 likes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's only this, and it's very, very tangible when you are in a stadium with that amount of people screaming your name.
Yeah, and that's why I say it. Like, you know, and I spoke to Travis Clark yesterday. I credit to Honda, Jet, and Hunter, the whole team, for going back, doubling down, committed to continuing to go back. You know, I want them to race in WSX, and I want them to do it via me. Absolutely, I don't make any bones about that. Do not make any bones about that. In an ideal world, they'd be racing with me in Queensland, say, right? Because I think as part of a world championship in Australia, that is as mega. But until that day comes, you know, credit to them for committing to wanting to be part of the journey of inspiration, aspiration. All the things we've spoken about today, they're doing as individuals, and that's awesome.
So there's pushback from like the teams and the people that are involved on like the full season that are like, well, that's not fair in a way.
Well, other than we've restructured it, so, you know.
Yeah, maybe we should touch on like, how is that now? How was it and
Team
how
deal.
is it now?
Yeah, so, I mean, I suppose the best way to start is originally that there were centrally contracted riders, and we know who those centrally contracted riders were. You know, whether quite rightly so, there was a sporting integrity question that I had moving into that, which was that, you know, the world champion in every year that has the WSX has taken place has been an employee of World Supercross. And by its nature, that doesn't make for absolute sporting integrity. Like, that world champion has gone and raced for somebody, and likely due to manufacturer relationships, et cetera, is racing for the right team, but there's a reality to that. Now, I'm investing at record levels into the team deal again, but that team deal now and rider acquisition, so the deployment of those funds that were going to riders is now through the team. So we've got the ability for teams to come to us, for us to support them in their engagement and contracting of riders, of which we will continue to support alongside them. But the teams have got to have skin in the game with us. The teams themselves are paid, right? Don't any bones about that. But the construction of that paid deal now is one that I think is indicative of how you create an ecosystem where everybody is trying to build value in the ecosystem. Everything I've spoken about today sounds like I've got to do it all. The reality is I need lots of partners that are all doing it with me if we're going to be successful. So the teams are now incentivized. So they've got a participation fee. They've got a ability to get paid based on KPIs that we see them growing our commercial ecosystem, and they are able to come to us for deployment of capital to support their rider lineups. And that,
How did it work for people that don't understand?
in effect, there was a fee, and then there was a per race fee, and
So they just got show money, no matter who they brought to the table, no matter.
Correct.
They got paid to rock up.
correct, and then there was a $250,000 per race prize fund.
Yeah,
Which
for the riders.
It's well, however you then pay that, because if the teams wanted to keep that, it was paid via the teams, and the teams did flow it all the way through to the riders, right? But I actually have a slightly different view on that. Like, I think that we should have a prize fund, right? And that prize fund, if you want to pro rata it per race, will have a fee against it. And we've got a huge prize fund again this year, and one that is part of that team deal, incentivizes the teams.
So what would the total be this year for the prize pool, roughly?
Well, it's good 7 figures.
Okay.
Good 7 figures. So, and on that basis, I would ideally like it in a person, and the teams and I disagree slightly on this, and there'll be a different version, I'm sure, that will come out in the wash over the next couple of weeks. But I would like it to be, you know, you've got 7 teams in the 250 and 7 in the 450. I know they're the same, but let's say you've got two league tables at the end of the season, and the prize fund is paid on your performance in those 7 races. Now, if the teams then want to flow that prize fund through to the riders, then they just bonus the riders appropriately, Now, some teams might not want to do that. They might want to do, a winning bonus based on X. But as you go through to 10 races, pro-ratering it based on a rider getting paid per race, etc., the economies of scale doesn't make sense like that. You actually need to build a cleverer model. Now, I recognise there's some history in riders getting paid bonuses based on that directly from their teams on a weekend's performance. So there's probably a hybrid where we value the performance of the weekend and we value the performance of the season.
Yeah, well, because like from the rider's standpoint, like look at Tomac, he got to do 3 races. So he would get 0 at the end of the year.
Well, it depends
based on right now.
It depends on how they build their bonus system, right?
Yeah.
So I absolutely recognise that, and working out how is the appropriate way to pay riders and pay teams based on a total prize fund and cash flowing teams through the year as well. There's a reality to wanting to be paid now instead of in 11 weeks' time. I recognise that, but admittedly, there's no series in the world that is paying them like we are at the beginning of this either. So they're getting some funds from us from the outset. Up front. And, they're also getting paid the deployment of capital against riders in these funds. However we choose to do that, that will be paid up front. So, there's this happy medium and it has to be incentivized. So all of these things have to be incentivized based on performance, and some of those things recognises that my performance is of a global season across the year. All we really are is a disparate group of events taking place across the world.
Yeah.
So I need everybody moving the ecosystem forwards, recognising once again the legacy of where we've come from, servicing the people that are within it, teams, riders, and recognising where I want to go with it, that moving from where we were to the Formula One model of Constructors' Championship fees on the end of it is not where we're going to get to today.
Yeah.
We might get there one day, but what it will probably be is a hybrid of some of those funds going to there and some of those funds going to there.
Yeah. And so that's where you would want to get it to. And so none of the riders, so like if Eli Tomac comes to ride the series again this year, he's not getting paid directly through you. It goes through the team, and it's a lot more structured than what it has been. Correct. So like Kenny would be getting paid from you guys. Yeah. Eli would be getting paid from you guys, and you would want to get away from that model.
I think we are maturing as a sports league, and there are a number of reasons. One, I want to build IP in the teams. Like I want Pipes Motor Group as Pipes Motor Group to become a brand that is known all over the world.
Yeah, it's McLaren, it's Haas.
And I want strength in those brands so that there can be we know recognizing injuries and stuff like that there can be some sort of flexibility in rider lineups. So I've got to build that IP, and by doing so, we need to make sure that we associate riders with teams. I've also had to put the teams to work. I've given, there was probably a position where I had X amount of capital that I could deploy in previous years, if I say I was those people, and I spent it, and that meant there were 3 or 4 teams that had none of that. There is now a fund that everybody can use with real clear criteria about how you come and do so, whether you are Team GSM in France or whether you're PMG. You can come and engage me with that, and I will support you. And we're engaging riders, we're engaging agents, we're doing all of this together. But I'm not going to be the sole funder of an individual and then have them contracted to me and with associated rights accordingly. I'm going to do, and have done, a team deal which supports all of those things. That means that there can be an equitable deployment of funds. Go back to what I said at the very beginning. How do I move? I know the number. How do I move said criteria number that is our quality on track at the moment and bridge the gap between where we want it to go? I don't do that by going, right, let's put 3 lads at the top of the fund.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, it just comes back to incentives. Like I just believe in that so much. You just have to incentivize people in the right way to do the right thing. And when you just give people, it's just like a kid. You give a kid everything, just never really incentivized to do anything on its own.
The team deal, which is obviously a multi-year deal, is an 8-figure deal, right? Because multi-years, it's it's an 8-figure deal. It's a significant investment into the teams, the riders, the prize fund, and it's done on the basis of, we haven't got that revenue to support that right now. That's not a revenue share. Like traditionally, it'd be a revenue share deal. We'd go and do a CBA and we'd work it out.
Yeah.
That's done on us saying, this is where we're going. That's a pure
investment.
We are, and the investment that we're making is into you as teams and you as riders. And we're going to go and build this together. And I think now I've got, all of our teams are coming up from very different angles, right? When Stefano Domenicali is negotiating the Concord agreement in Formula One, Haas and McLaren probably come from a very different position. We absolutely have our own version of that. Absolutely have our own version of that. And the ability for potentially our US teams to be able to flatten their curve across having riders ride for them in the US and in World Supercross, and meaning be able to force some of their costs down and so on is significantly an opportunity, and the ability for them to speak to fans and so on. So I need to make sure that our deal has got absolute equality through it, and that it doesn't just incentivize those that are already big to be able to perform and get paid more, but also recognizing that I want to incentivize behaviors. I do this with our commercial sales team. If I incentivize only outcomes, third parties can impact outcomes, and suddenly something happens and 12 months worth of work goes out the door. If I incentivize behaviors, knowing that if you do those behaviors,
you'll get the outcomes. Yeah.
So I'm going to incentivize behaviors.
Yeah.
So it's not, I mean, some of our teams were like, some of our teams were saying, well, that doesn't mean that we have to do this, does it? And I'm like, no. What it means is, so we don't have to achieve this. No, it means you have to do this because I know it will achieve that. And if it doesn't, it might take you 2 years.
Yeah.
We've also set up, so a lot of the most mainstream sports will have divisions that are absolutely in place to only help the teams, promoters, or whatever their franchises are, become more economically stable and be able to drive revenues and also be singing from the same hymn sheet. It's called Teambo in the NBA. There's the same version in the NFL. A lot of the English soccer clubs have got it. So we've launched the TPP division, teams, partners, and promoters. There's his sole job at the moment, there's one guy within it, is to support the teams in developing their revenue opportunities and the promoters. That has got nothing to do with me, that I won't get paid. So I've employed somebody who's on my paycheck to make money for the others.
Yeah.
And that's because I think he's probably going to be better than some of the things that are internal elsewhere and can help them put the foundations in place for them to be able to monetize.
Yeah. And you're just helping teams build a foundation.
Correct.
This podcast is brought to you by our new electrolyte partner, Sota Fuel. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you would know that I'm pretty big on the whole hydration thing. I was only born with one kidney, and my whole life I've had to pay pretty close attention to my water consumption. But until a few years ago, I didn't realize it wasn't just water that kept dehydration away, and that to be properly hydrated, you needed to make sure you had enough electrolytes in your system to properly absorb that water. As a result, every single day, I make sure I drink water mixed with Sota Fuel electrolyte mix. Sota Fuel is packed with all 6 essential electrolytes and key vitamins to help keep you hydrated and performing at your best. With up to 5 times more effective hydration than water alone, you'll stay energized and focused throughout your ride. Plus, there's no added sugar, so you won't experience those dreaded spikes or sugar crashes. With just 0.2 grams of sugar per sachet and real fruit juice flavors, Sota Fuel keeps it clean and natural. As far as a supplement for riding dirt bikes, Sota Fuel is your friend on and off the track. It helps reduce arm pump, muscle fatigues, keeps you hydrated to avoid headaches, and provides sustained energy to keep you sharp. Sota Fuel is not only effective, but it's also one of the cleanest and most complete formulas on the market, with 2 to 3 times the electrolytes compared to industry standard and a cost per gram that is twice as affordable. It is honestly a no-brainer, and it has been developed by world-class nutritionists. These lightweight, portable sachets are perfect. Throw in your gear bag, throw in your toiletries bag, throw in your work bag. They've got 4 great flavors, but my personal favorite is this bad boy right here, Gypsy Juice. This is our very own flavor. This is modeled off my favorite drink as a kid. It was a juice box flavor, and I have that in Sota Fuel. Now, I think it is by far the best flavor out of the 4. Go to sotafuel.com right now or click the link in the description. I'm incredibly proud of this product. It's got my name on it, and I would love for you guys to try it. I guess one of the things I'm curious about is like how long can you wait for it to be profitable, or like, because you're essentially, I'm assuming, going to be losing money for a bit, or is it where these government deals to go around the world actually are worth enough money for it to be viable? Because I think part of the trust, and this is just a huge thing in motocross and supercross in general, whether it's private teams coming in and out, and they have 10 years. And so, like, where's the sustainability, and, like, where's the line where it's like, okay, we give up. Like, we can't make this work.
I'll make a profit in 26.
Yeah, okay. So you have a clear vision for profit, because I think that's where a lot of the trust issues in motocross and supercross come from, is that it's so rarely profitable.
Yeah.
Like, one of the oldest sayings in the sport is, if you want to make a big fortune in motocross, start with a small. If you want to make a small fortune, you know what I'm trying to say, start with the big one. And it's just like, that has been true on so many occasions. You know, there's just been people that come in, they're these big money people, and they're like, fucking sweet, I can make this work. They don't make it work, and then they dip. Like, how do you see it as different?
Yeah, I suppose. I suppose it isn't different, and it is different in that we've taken a long, hard look at this as a business, and charted a path to profitability, recognizing that is in IP, global, all the things we've spoken about today. It does mean that we are probably slightly front-ended on ensuring that we have to invest in capital at the front, not just in the transactional nature of the teams, but in so much, from our infrastructures to our content to our influencers to
wages,
everything. Yeah, all that stuff, right? Like, it's all front-ended. And
what's the investment you reckon? Like, what's 24 worth to you, investment-wise? What do you reckon you put into it?
It was an 8-figure investment.
Yeah, it's no fucking joke. It's a lot of money.
Look, I suppose I'd like to say that should be evidence of how committed we are.
For sure.
We had a decision to make that I came and was a supporter of in Q2 last year, of recognizing that you could look at it almost as a deferred acquisition cost. Do we make the investment into 2024 with no sponsors, no partners, no government host fees, knowing what tickets we're going to do, right? We knew from the outset what that was going to look like.
There's going to be a bloodbath on the balance sheet.
Oh, an absolute bloodbath, right? And what you'd got was 2 exceptionally astute, intelligent investors at ownership level that have owned non-sport and sporting assets very, very successfully, and that look at balance sheets more than they look at anything else. And you had got expertise in sports business, shall we say, to say, look, do we think this is going to be the right investment, and how long until the investment then begins to show something in the black? And we had an opportunity to get out at that point, and we went, no, this is the right one. And this year looks a lot better. We're probably making more capital investments this year that mean that we'll amortize those in different ways, but from an operational year on year, it looks a lot better. And then next year, we're there. You know, we'll have done it in 2 years. So, I'm sort of, I get stuck sometimes in the dichotomy of this business, because you want it to be pure. You want it to be about the fans roaring, Eli versus Ken in Perth, which, you know, there was a couple of races that was just really great under the sun was going down, it was a full house in Perth, and you want it to be about that, and just about that sort of purity of sport. And I say it with Sunderland in the football. And then there's a reality that these are multi-million pound dollar businesses, and there needs to be a purity in our business behaviours that ultimately drives, you know, capitalist behaviours and outcomes.
Yeah.
And that is our guiding light of, like, how do we deliver that purity? How do we capture it in a bottle And then over a period of time, how do we turn that into a really successful EBITDA business?
Yeah, but I mean, it's a dichotomy, but it also isn't, right? Like somebody should be making money out of that.
Correct.
Because somebody's assuming millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of risk to make it happen. Like
Correct.
it's not a game of marbles.
Correct.
You know, so I personally struggle with people. Same with Feld. Feld's making so much fucking money out of this. Yeah, but every year on the first weekend of January, I just rock up to the Angel Stadium and see the fucking sickest race. Sure. Like, that ain't easy.
No.
And I can watch it on TV. And if I'm in Australia, I can watch it on the video. But, like, this takes a lot of money to make happen. Yeah. And people who outlay, like, who assumes the risk gets the reward.
Yeah, it's the
like,
fact.
I just don't think it should be as, I don't know, seedy as what people make it out to be at times.
I agree with you. I mean, like, I totally agree with you. I'm as hardened capitalist, industrialist, factory owner, however you want to call it. Yeah. That's who I am, and it's how I've built businesses, both mine and others around the world. I do recognise that our sport and those that participate in our sport sometimes have a different view and lens of that.
Yeah, but there are also people that will never ever build anything to know the realities of what it takes. Like, people would shit their pants if they knew what it took to run this every month. Of course. Like, it's fucking ridiculous.
Of course. The thing that I will also say, and I want to talk to the fan when I say that, is to achieve what we want to achieve, we have to achieve for you. Right? So, you know, and if that's not enough and you still begrudge our outcome, then I can't win.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Yeah.
But what I absolutely want to put as a foundation, that is, if we do deliver for our fans and we put our fans at the very forefront of it, then the outcome is what we want the outcome to be.
Yeah.
What we're not going to be in a situation is where we transactionally don't have a positive impact on the wider sport, because, you know, when we're taking government funding and stuff like that, we need to be more than just that transactional promoter that's moving around the world and selling tickets. Yeah.
What percentage of revenue would the government deals be worth, do you think, if you looked at it as a pie?
Right. So, I mean, it's more... The easier way to talk about that is that motorsport specifically, and world touring sports in general, will by their nature go and try and sell their rights. Whether they sell their rights to a promoter that then takes on the risk and sells the upside, traditional kind of concert promoter model, who then also may go to a host city to get some funding, or whether they go down the different path. In certain of those sports, there's tens of millions coming in from each host to host some of those sports. In this case, I actually think World Supercross was really guilty over the first couple of years of believing that the value of their rights to sell to host cities and to governments was far higher than the actual value of it was worth at that moment in time. So, you know, I know that they were engaged with hosts and saying, this is the number that you need to pay us. And there had been 2 events. I actually don't disagree with the number, but you've got to earn the right to go wide.
Yeah.
And we had not earned the right. Where we've got now is that we've got 3 or 4 of our races that have got really good support, others that are on the journey to doing so, and we are delivering, and will in 2025 deliver a clear ROI on every dollar that is spent. So, you know, we will have very strong KPIs in each of those markets to deliver against that based on whatever the narrative needs be. Some of that can be media value, some of that can be eyeballs, some of that's digital, some of that's more quantifiable via the new world, some of it's quantifiable by the traditional transactional world of people coming to watch.
Yeah.
But if I don't deliver against that, and World Supercross, whether I've run it or a promoter's run it, is not able to kind of deliver against those contracts, we'll lose those contracts. So, you know, they come with it good upside, they give us great foundation, but they don't come without risk themselves as well. They basically are a partner that we need to service and service really well and really appropriately. Unlike in some of other sports where the eyeballs are enough. You know, let's Formula One may have 50, 60 million eyeballs on a race on the weekend. There'll be some host that will pay just on those eyeballs.
Yeah.
Right, and
too big to fail.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Whereas we're going to very clearly have things that we delivered, and we delivered against them in Western Australia and in Vancouver last year. We had host city deals in both of those places, and we delivered against those deals.
Yeah,
and we've got some really, really good ones that I've gone out and done over the past 6 months.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe if you look at the AMA to WSX, that's a very key difference. Like that's not a revenue stream that the AMA has essentially.
The 7-figure host deals, we can deliver a good return on investment for host cities.
Yeah. What do you reckon the cost is for you guys to put on an event? Like, let's say Cape Town, like just a hard cost of...
I know from an operational event point of view, it kind of irrespective of where, it's between 1.6 and $2.2 million.
Yeah. So that's just like a clear... Like, is that basically you guys can... I mean, then I guess you'd have just like general wages on top of that.
Yeah, and
but
I'd have my team deal and everything like that on top of it. And my prize fund and everything like that.
Yeah.
That is literally the local P&L.
So that's just to go and put on. Yeah.
That's the event itself.
So if you can get a 7-figure deal by the host city, like you can kind of go close to covering the cost of the event.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good place to be in.
So you can build out some pretty good things in there. And look, one of the things that how we work with hosts is how much money you're spending in local market with local suppliers. The impact that you're having on the local business ecosystem.
Yeah.
So the dollars
you're literally just feeding it straight back in.
Yeah, the dollars you're spending, the ticket sellers you're spending, the money that individual is then spending in hotels and in restaurants. It brings you this economic value of you being in city, and it's far bigger. And different cities have different kind of multipliers, but it's far bigger than what they invest in us, what they get back. These cities. And we are a good investment.
Yeah.
We are a good investment at kind of low 7-figure numbers.
Yeah.
But we're not the number that was being charted around previously when we hadn't earned the right to have that number. What we've got to do this year is continue to deliver against those, build bigger fan numbers again, build our broadcaster numbers further, continue to build content out for all of those partners so that we can be really, really successful partners for that, and they're serviced from a media value as well as being serviced from that binary tourist dollars in city. Also driving out of state visitation. So it's a really important number, especially in Australia and in Canada. It's like, how are you driving people from outside of? In Canada, it's considered 80 kilometers away from the venue. In Australia, kind of the same. Basically, why would somebody stay in a hotel? But it's also very easy for you to basically say this out of state number. So, if you're racing in Queensland, how many people are coming to watch from New South Wales?
Yeah. So let's maybe switch focus to the racing a little bit. Like, I think you guys are in a very cool place because I think you're going to be able to be innovative in your approach. Like, so for example, there was at points this year where Joey Savacci and a couple of the other guys had Cardo systems and they were doing rider communication. Like I saw the clips, like they were a partner of ours, right? And so they showed us clips and they showed us the way that they were using the system. And so I'm a big proponent of comms, as you know, but these guys are using it even a step further where Joey's got it on in qualifying. And his mechanics like, hey, you've got 14 seconds till the checkered flag. Like you have to get to the start line now. Like don't fuck around. Get to start your lap. So it was like really cool to just see, okay, there's just flexibility here and there's less hoops to jump through, it seems like, from your end to implement something like that. That is just it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know when it's going to be implemented in the AMA. Like, hopefully it does. But to me, it's just like a complete no-brainer that we need some kind of communication. So you guys are in this unique position where you can just like pull the trigger and make something like that happen.
We obviously need to run it past the FIM and work with the relevant departments at the FIM if it's going to be on the track. And we're really lucky that the group in Geneva are really open-minded to this level of innovation. I am a massive proponent for, the more and more we can do to peel back the curtain of any form of professional sport is the way to create content. I'm not 100% sure what the best iteration of this comms is going to be for the consumer. I think there's some really great stuff for the athlete and his engineer and in qualifying and in practice. I'm not sure it's a live race product, but open-minded too. And then how do we show that to the consumer? Is there a secondary stream where during practice, if you go onto our streaming network and you can buy practice for 50 cents, you get to listen to either the Cardo stream or the commentary stream? Is that something that people want to buy and interesting? So I think we're going to have to do quite a lot of market testing on what is that product. Is it just a highlights piece? Because it'll have to be built on, there'll be a nature of servicing the sport from a sporting operations piece, but that will ultimately get funded by then how we tell the story of that so that we sell more Cardo pieces. And I don't think we've quite worked out what the product needs to be to support the operations. It's coming. And we did obviously a couple of test days at the end of last year. We one in Abu Dhabi and one in Canada.
How was your experience with it?
I thought it's great. It's absolutely great. I think it's great. And I drive a Vespa around London. Yeah. And I've got a Cardo unit. Yeah. And I think they're awesome. And it's funny enough, it's actually when I'm driving my Vespa around London and I'm on my Cardo unit, I'm often quite thinking about, I'm like, I wonder how would this work with this here? I think there's some really interesting sound technology that you can add to it to give like a purity in the sound that if we're going to be on a broadcast, we've got to really think about. We've seen that with other motorsport assets, having to really consider how sound is coming back out of it. At the moment, it's absolutely world class for the riders. Yeah. Now, clearly, once you go through latency and you go through broadcast, et cetera, is it as good there? And what can we do to make sure that it is? Because I'll suddenly get held accountable for that. So it's finding that mix behind the sort of inside the NFL mic'd up, head coach mic'd up model versus what might be the outcome product. Yeah. But you're right. I think that level of innovation, and if you look at where else we want to be looking at second streams, we want to be looking at telemetry. I think one of the things that, again, I take my experience of being potentially the most inexperienced Supercross guy at the track most times I turn up. And I was at the Paris event, which is amazing. Heads Eric Perrinard and the team there.
It's wild, eh?
Yeah, it's really cool. I really loved it, and I obviously know that arena really well because it's a rugby arena by sort of day to day at La Défense, and it's got this enormous screen at the end. It's just so perfect for Supercross. If we could have X number of those around the world, we'd be winning. But however great that screen was, and however great the racing was and the framing, I still sat in my seat and I was like, there's still something missing for the layman consumer of the sport. And if you go back to those kind of 4 buckets that we spoke about, that in the jeans, that's Kurt Nickel. So when I'm sitting with Kurt's like, whoa, did you see that? And I'm like, no, I didn't see that.
Yeah, what are you talking about, bro?
Yeah, no. And then I look around to try and find a replay, and it's obviously not there. And he's just like, he's consuming it in a way that I'm just not.
Yeah, yeah.
So how can I improve or develop the experience of the person who is coming for the first, second, third time? And what are the things he needs, she needs? What second screen option? What needs to be on our big screens? Do we have to have a track map? And is that track map clearly telemetry saying where people are at any one time? How, from a digital point of view, can we enhance letting people know what incredible athletes they are? So have we got heart rates? Have we got the impact that it's having on bodies? What are we doing reference, telling them how high they're going, the speeds they're going over whoops? Like, what's the technology that can be really this like deep consumption point for the in the jeans, but also be a real simplistic point,
an educational piece. Yeah.
And those are things that I spend all my time thinking about.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the strengths of you being a fairly uneducated Supercross consumer. Like just being new to the table, lifelong in sports, worked in Formula One, so racing and motorsport, but it's like, how can that be applied here? I mean, sometimes hubris is like not a great thing when you just think
Yep.
you know everything about it. So I mean, it's I'm sure there's definitely some positive aspects to your naivety in a way.
Yeah, I don't doubt it, and I definitely, it definitely humbles me, and we talk about the humble disruptor all the time internally. I think that us being really humble in going, right, we don't know anything, so how can we use that to our advantage?
Yeah.
Reference other people in our organisation as well, and I think every race I sit next to Kurt, and I go to quite a lot of races with him, I learn more about the sport. But I still am looking around thinking, how can I get more of me to go to races regularly? Right, and that might be that actually there's a slight churn to the Tom Burwells, which is that I might go to 5 races in my life, let's say that, before I churn out the demo one, right?
Yeah.
Which means that if I've got this 20% of my audiences are demo one and they only ever go to 5 races, so their knowledge is only ever X, we've got to be servicing that person always.
Yeah.
Not bringing him through the tail and then ending up making him demo 2 and he's moved and he's graduated into it. Because yes, okay, that guy's great, but you're always going to have demo 1. So how can we service all of those buckets? And that's, honestly, that is a massive part of the conversations that are happening internally all of the time. All of the time. Is like, how can we improve the product and the experience for riders all the way through to each of the demographics that are sitting there, and do that with a real blank paper every time. I mean, betting's an interesting one, right? Because, and the reason I mention that is obviously we've been talking here about data and the implications of data, and obviously the data that we create then goes into the broadcast. So, and to have a really, really solid betting program, you obviously need to be able to do that. And then with that, how do you build an in-game betting program within that? And what are all these things? So all of this needs to be thought. And coming back to that point about, monetization and ultimately profitability, but yet putting at the heart of it an education, like all of those things are connected. And, when we put it up on the wall, there is this big picture all of the time. And then you zoom into the buckets that you can do today. People celebrate internally when I'm like, this is not one for this year. And they're like, thank goodness. Because there's a lot that we want to do now. And then we recognize there's some things you just go, you know what, that's down the line. That's down the line.
So, what's your take on the betting thing in our sport? Because it's first year kind of being supported in the AMA, and I guess in your experience in sport in general, where does betting come into the general landscape?
Look, we would be naive not to say that sports like ours are going to be streaming-based sports, content-based sports, are not going to be highly influenced by microtransactions and things on the blockchain. And with that, I meaning the easy spend of one coin, whatever the value of that coin is, and whether that's against a bet or a transaction in another form, we are creating digital sports that do that. I think our sport is absolutely ripe for that. We then need to create data ecosystems that support that. We need to create broadcasts and international streams that support that, recognizing our linear deals will have a clean feed and we'll be over here with a betting feed. And then if we're going to do it, we've got to be all in on it. So I've got to be running sportsbook shows on my channels on Thursdays. I've got to be, running them on my podcasts on Mondays, like absolutely everything, because just sharing some odds beforehand is not going to do it. We have to create an entire betting ecosystem if we're going to go down that route. And my experiences is such that if we don't, we're just a sport that's going to be left behind. Because the reality now is that in microtransactions, people don't care what they're betting on. They sit there playing Fortnite, doing 80, 50 cents bets, right? And so we need to create real simplicity, a really great feed, make it really understandable, and I think probably pretty ethical as well, right?
Yeah. And what's your experience in what betting does for a sport? Like, why introduce betting into a sport?
Yeah, good question. I think it's potentially been very unfairly held accountable to different things in the UK. You know, obviously the UK betting industry and Australia,
Oh,
right?
mate, Aussie's fucking hectic.
Like, you know,
There's pokies in every single pub, restaurant.
Yeah.
Like, it's mental.
And the ownership of pokies in, you know, the guy that owns X number of the pokies in Sydney, you'd be one of the wealthiest guys in Sydney, right? Like, there's a certain amount of licenses for a certain amount of pokies. So everyone's licensing it in a different way, and we're now talking a language that people are probably like, what on earth are they talking
what the
about?
fuck's a pokey? Yeah.
And but I do think in the UK's had obviously a gambling and betting on sport for as long as it can remember, right? You know, from horse racing through to whatever.
Yeah.
And has iconic days throughout the year that are intrinsically known as betting days. Grand National for you, it's the
Melbourne Cup.
Melbourne Cup.
Yeah.
Betting has become a large part of soccer over the last 10 years and has become a large part of the commercial arrangements within the sport. And at the same time, has probably been held very unfairly accountable for challenges that the betting industry has faced from governments. I don't think that is the fault of the sport, nor the fault of, nor the requirement for further regulation. It is the drafting that we find ourselves in digitally for people to take opportunity to do so. So I think we need to be very clear with the messaging that this is, you know, adults making adults decisions. I think in our case, funny enough, what we're not going to see is $5,000 bets, $10,000 bets. I mean, we will do. There'll be the unusual ones, but
it'll be an outlier.
Yeah, there'll be the outliers. I could genuinely think this is a sport that's absolutely ripe for microtransaction, and what comes with microtransaction is ultimately pretty safe. We're going to have 6 races a day. You know, if you've got, in our case, they're going to go, right, 6 races, you've got potentially a whole shot qualifying Super Pole. Okay, he's got 9 or 10 transactions. And then within that, potentially you've got 6 minutes of in-play betting. Okay, somebody's made 40 $1 bets.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, we got to be really honest that we want to do that, and we want to build an ecosystem that supports that. And we also ensure that is done ethically and morally, that people understand the implications. But I do not think that we should be a sport that doesn't do that when we're seeing other sports just pull away. We need to be at the forefront of digital microtransactions because I think we're a sport that can do so.
Yeah, and I mean, people are just going to bet on...
Correct.
You know, so I guess, yeah, it's definitely... It is like a bit of a weird... It's like a weird...
We'll just talk about purity again, right?
Yeah, and I mean that one is a bit of a weird one, but I mean there's also the perspective of it, and I think like I experienced this when I first moved here. Everyone was super into the NFL, and I was like, just couldn't really get into it. Obviously, I come from playing rugby my whole life,
and now you're gambling on it,
no pads and no, you know. So I was just like, I just don't know about this.
Yeah.
But it was fantasy football that got me into it. I was in a league with the boys. It's $20 a weekend, and it made me give a fuck.
Yep.
And it kind of brought me in. So I think like my perspective on the sport was changed by being able to have a punt with the boys.
Yep.
So I guess that has kind of changed the way that I think about it. And yeah, it sort of doesn't make sense to not have bets in this.
You've just summed up as well. That's fan acquisition.
Yeah, because there is a fan acquisition element and like a skin in the game, actually caring because you've got a bit of a bet on, you know.
And you go back to that simplicity, right? So if we can get a real clear stream that's got X number of really simple micro bets within a race, and now I, as Tom, demo 1, go into his second race, clearly sees, do I think racer number 3 can do X to racer number 2? Yes, I can. Now I'm watching that. I'm engaged in it. It's happened. Yes, great. Moving on to the next bit. Okay, I might not be watching it like Kurt, but now I'm all in my version of how this is for me. Now, if I can do that live in the stadium with a second screen in the World Supercross wallet, phone, however we call it, or equally for the person sitting at home, then I think we've got a really cool opportunity of servicing different fans. Sits in a different space to us servicing the 14-year-old via a legacy program, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I reckon we've recognised what we need to make sure we're doing is we're servicing the demographics that are appropriate to be serviced via this and put the safeguards in place to ensure that we don't slip in any other way.
So you can see a world where you guys have like an app,
Yeah.
and there's like all sorts of transactions and purchases are going down in like the WSX app. You can watch the rider helmet cam, rider A, rider B, or there's like just a general subscription to, like, I'm a MotoGP video pass or SMX video pass. Like I'll probably spend $300-$400 a year watching the racing that I want to watch.
And to put it in a different way, if you paid $400 on the racing you want to watch, if you'd paid that to me, I probably would have given 100 of that back to our ecosystem in some way.
Yeah.
That's how we're going to approach this.
Would that be the same with the betting thing?
There's you'll definitely go after affiliate models where
because the betting one's hard, right? Yeah. Because then there's obviously like I technically can't bet on Supercross.
Sure. Correct.
Because I'm a member of the media, whatever.
Correct.
So yeah, I guess that is a bit of a hard one.
Yeah, our regulations and everything like that need to be very, very clear.
Who would you be regulated by as World Supercross?
Well, we're regulated. Our bettings would be regulated on where we're taking place and the streams that were happening and how we were showing up in different ways and the way that rules and regulations happen in each of those in-market spaces. Whether the stream is allowed to go into that race market, whether somebody's allowed to bet on that. But we create, it's the same as if, let's say the Grand National in the UK, if it was coming into the US, then there'll be some states that you're not officially allowed to bet on it, but people are. And then there are the ones that you can do. None of that is the responsibility of the stream that's coming into the US. It's the responsibility of the person who's making the decision to bet. So we have to be really careful not to fall afoul of regulations. And this is one of those ones which is, this is not for now, because
there's a lot to
there's
figure
a
out.
version of it that is for now, but there is a year's worth of work with experts. So we've just taken somebody on as a consultant who was a CEO of one of the major bookmakers in the UK. Who's come on as like our sort of resident expert in microtransactions, and we've also taken somebody on from the data and digital world to go, okay, how do we build an ecosystem, and how do we make sure that we do it in the right way, and not just go, right, we'll do a deal with X company, create a market, put some content out, make a couple $100,000, and go, okay, well that washes its face. Because that again comes back to kind of a short-termist view, and we're here for the long term.
And so, how does the betting model like feed back to riders, teams getting paid? Like, would there just be a pool that you guys would pay into with that? Or?
Yeah, so I think it would depend in two ways. Like, I've had some pretty interesting conversations with agents where agents are like, we should get rider A to call out rider B and say, I've put $100,000 down, you put $100,000 down, and use that as a piece of content to inspire a above the line bookies marketing rights piece. Yeah, which I quite like. Yeah. Just from a cool piece of content point, I actually think that is slightly the darker side of betting. That looks way worse, ironically, as much as I like it. What you've got is affiliate models. So again, is if you've got riders and teams clearly calling out the ability to use said sportsbook, and said sportsbook, you go and make your bets and put your money into your wallet through that sportsbook, there's an affiliate kickback on the other side to those. So we'll only build an ecosystem which is able to be shared, because you'll have a sportsbook that sits on the front of it, you'll have a data provider that sets the odds, and then ultimately I'm in effect going to get paid two ways, probably above the line marketing rights, but also on a kickback based on those bets, of which we're then going to go, right, and I will share that bit with others if it's ultimately come through somebody else's funnel. Yeah, how cool would it be if Rider A comes and joins on the World Supercross, and gets paid its race bonuses, gets paid its constructors bonuses, has sponsors that are paying them to extra eyeballs round, has been able to monetize some local markets, and then is able to get paid on streaming and paid on betting. Yeah. And even if you shrink down, Rider A could be Eli, but it could be Bourdon. Yeah. The number will be different, but the inputs will be the same.
Yeah, well, it's the opportunities the same.
Correct.
Yeah.
And actually, funny enough, things like streaming, Bourdon might turn around and go to all of his French fans, hey, watch me on World Supercross, I get paid. And all his fans are like, I want to help him get paid.
Yeah.
I don't know if Eli would get the same reaction because of the tribalist nature of the sports. And what I want to do is then want to kind of egg it on. And you'll know why I want to do this, but imagine on a Monday if I produce a league table of the teams that have created the most streaming views. People need to know whether that's dollars or not dollars. And riders are doing it. And then teams suddenly start going, hey, guys, help us get to the top of that league table. We'll get paid more on it.
Yeah.
Well, each and every time they do all those things, I'm going to get paid more money.
Yeah, it's just incentives.
Yeah.
Have you seen what NASCAR's doing?
I've seen bits of it.
So there's $1 million pool for the driver that gets the most impressions in NASCAR.
Okay.
Or is it a $1 million first prize? Do you remember? Yeah, it's either $1 million first prize,
right,
or it's $1 million pot. But I'm pretty sure it's $1 million for the winner.
And they get the impressions based on
podcast appearances, social media likes.
Across all verticals of social comments.
So guess who's had fucking 3 NASCAR drivers reach out over the last couple of weeks, you know, because it's just like, and they're wanting to talk about the sport. There's like positive, incentives for those guys to make more money based on, you know, the work that they're doing for the organization.
100%. And of course, that one's done on outcomes, right? So
there you go. NASCAR to debut. Go up a sec.
5 racing season tournament, $1 million prize under the format top 3.
Oh, is this?
Oh, this is
no. This is different. Yeah, this is different. But anyway, I'm pretty sure it's $1 million payout for the guy who can generate the most amount.
That's awesome. And look, we look at things like the Baller League, the Kings League, different types of kind of sporting assets that are heavily backed or engaged with celebrities and influencers. The modern day sport is 100% going to have a huge part of it based on all the things that we've just spoken about. You know, a sportsman is going to get paid via its traditional sports vertical, so me as the IP holder, based on what they are doing for the ecosystem. One of which, by the way, is we're hosting this thing called World Supercross Latitude, which is basically our first ever summit, which kind of says this is who we are, this is what we're doing, this is how you're all going to work, how we're all going to work together, how we're all going to get paid together. And I've had to put one of the KPIs of the commercial growth is you must attend this.
Yeah.
Because that's where we're starting from.
Yeah.
We're starting from like, Tom wants me to go to London.
Yeah.
Right.
You're almost the fucking headmaster.
Yeah, correct.
Of a class of degenerate motorcycle riders who just want to show up and race.
Correct. And they do.
Yeah.
And I respect that.
Yeah.
I respect. They just want to ride and race each other.
The world has just changed, but, you know, like I think that's one of the facts that people just maybe don't want to admit. Yeah. But it's like the world's changed, man. The competition, like I have a friend in Dubai and he makes a fuckload of money.
Sure.
And he just does ads. So he's just one of the digital dudes on the laptop. He lives in his fucking gangster apartment. He drives his McLaren to get his breakfast and his lunch and his dinner. And that's all he does is he's just an attention merchant.
Yeah.
And he's like, bro, take it from the guy who knows. It is getting harder and harder and harder and harder to get attention.
Yeah, because more and more
because
people
there's
are
so much competition, you know.
Share a voice.
Yeah. And I just don't think, you know, the average rider that spent his whole life training to be the kind of person that can win an AMA Supercross or can win a World Supercross race. Like what you've had to do to get to that level in that thing, you're just not going to understand the nuts and bolts of how the world works on a entertainment and a sporting perspective these days, you know? So it's like there has to be a bit of an acknowledgement of like, okay, the days of being Ricky Carmichael, rocking up, getting paid $5 million a year with crazy bonuses to live it in the sticks in Florida and just do 3 40-minute motos a day.
Yeah.
They're done.
Yeah.
You know, like you're just not going to make $20 million over 3 years by just doing that.
Sure.
There needs to be more. And, you know, you've got to hire good people that essentially can do that for you. But none of this is a given now. None of this is a given that the sport's going to be profitable. None of this is a given that you're going to be profitable as a rider. Like, shit done changed.
Yeah, agreed. I couldn't agree more. And you're right. The riders have got to be surrounded by the right people. That's got to be the start. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's still going to work. I remember I stood in Abu Dhabi. I said to all of the team managers, I said, I need you to get all of the riders together. I need to stand in front of them all. Because they've all seen me flitting around. They've heard me talking. They're probably like, what the fuck is this guy talking about?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's this British guy, like limping around, like can't barely walk, right? Like limping about, quite a gruff voice going, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, moving at quite a pace. So I need to get them all in a room. And I owned that. And I was like, look, I appreciate this is really the first opportunity bar a letter I wrote to you in Canada where I'm going to say, you know, trust me, come on this journey. And I spent 20 great minutes with them. And I could see it's deer in the headlights. It's like, what is he talking about? But I could also see, and it's partly the crop of riders that we had in World Supercross, which is that where they probably get paid, they're always looking up, right? I also felt this tangible, we want to be part of this, and we want to do something. We want to do it in a different way. Like I say, it's easier when you're not in the top 10 to do that because you're chasing dollars in a different way. And I need to be able to capture the same sort of grab from the top 10 riders who also then want to come and really, really grow this together. But I only need 4 or 5 of them to come on that journey with me. And we'll do some incredible stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I said this to Kenny. I can't remember where it was. Maybe it was in the UK at the Birmingham round.
Right.
And I was basically like, I was trying to get across, like, you could literally be the dude that just like globally puts a sport on your back. Mm-hmm. You know, you can still race the AMA stuff. Like, you want to be, Supercross is what you love doing.
Yeah.
You're German, great looking, awesome with the fans, amazing talent. Like, you've got all of the attributes to be the kind of guy that can put the sport on their back and really take it global. Like, you're right. You really don't need too many people. Like, you need a really core group of dudes that get it, understand, and are down to
beat each other.
Yeah, and are down to graft to make it work too, you know?
Yeah. And look, really, really, really grateful for Kenny. I think he's been a stand-up ambassador for something that he took a big leap with a great agent that did him a great deal.
Yeah, I was going to say there's also a really good agent there. I definitely would have...
they got a good deal as well.
Tight the screws a bit. But that's
they wouldn't have got that deal with me. But
that's
they
his
got
job.
a good deal. And I respect it. Steve and I have had a conversation about it. Like, I massively respect the deal that they got.
But they need it at the position to, like, I guess, knowing the version of World Supercross from the start as well. Like, they needed to do that.
Yeah,
and
they had to de-risk themselves.
They needed a big name that they could carry them through for those few years.
I'm also, I can't tell you what a great guy I thought Eli was last year.
He's unreal, eh?
Like, he obviously came in Cardiff 2 years ago, but he walked in, he's an absolute superstar, and, you know, people saw him as a superstar, and he was in the paddock. He was just such a great ambassador for World Supercross. He's such a great ambassador. I say this because, you know, I am still incredibly grateful for those that have supported us on the journey so far. That's teams and riders and so on under much more difficult circumstances. And Eli, particularly in 2024, didn't have to make the decision that he did to come and race, and he did. And we are incredibly grateful for that. He is a stand-up great guy.
Yeah, no, 100%. You guys got very lucky as well in where he landed in terms of what happened during his season. Like, he needed to rate. Like, there was so much.
The things happened at the right time.
That was just the perfect. Like, you guys needed that. Yep. He needed that. And that's another feather in the cap, or that's like another reason for this to exist.
Yeah.
You know, like there should be these places that people can go for various reasons.
Yeah.
Because the sport is so out of control in a way. Like look at that Eli this year at San Diego. That's maybe the best I've ever seen him ride.
Yeah,
and I've been watching him ride personally for over 10 years. That was fucking incredible. Week later, 2 weeks later, out of the series.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like we are just in such an unpredictable and challenging sport that it's like there kind of needs to be like if Eli didn't race World Supercross last year, we don't get that same dude at A1 and San Diego. Like he needed those gate drops.
I couldn't agree more with that. Right? Like there's an interesting one. I look at that through lots of different lenses that some sports are facing, which is like, how do you get an integrated calendar? Like in an ideal world, we'd have this big summit, right? We'd all come with like a really open mind.
You bring your guitars, a bottle of wine, like some cheese.
David Luongo walks in. He's bought a lovely bottle of Prosecco and he's got some cheese. And Feld boys all walk in and some Big Macs and
nice
like,
blanket. Really comfy blanket and some pillows.
Like, I've come in. I'm sort of archetypal Brit, and I sort of bought my Swiss German owner. It's a bit like a Bond villain, and we've all come together as the summit. Like, how are we going to do an integrated calendar?
Yeah.
Now, that's not going to work.
That ain't ever happening.
No, so we've got to recognise what people are going to do in my off season. And in the off season from World Supercross or how whatever lens you look at that through, like I look at it through the fact that my season is my season and people have got to do something in the other X number of months, and
they look at it vice versa.
They look at it vice versa. I do think that there are enough riders and enough pieces of content that you're going to end up with these magnificent moments across the 12-month period. That's going to service fans appropriately, and like you say, you're going to get the moments like you have done with Eli. And by the way, bar one mad moment, who would be the red plate?
Kenny.
Yeah. And let's be really brutally honest, his 4 weeks where he was finding his form. So he was in a slightly different arc. Like Eli performed so well in World Supercross. Kenny found his form in World Supercross so that he just came straight out the blocks.
Yeah.
And by that moment, he's a red plate.
Yeah.
And, potentially beating Eli, whereas Eli beat him in World Supercross. This, amazing moments.
We need to bring you a quick word from our sponsor, Motosport.com. I got a YZ450F that I got some upgrades to do. You know exactly where I'm going. I'm going to need some help with customer service, so I'm going to chat with a gearhead. This box showed up. It has a 2007 KTM master cylinder, a Yamaha caliper, also 2007, and a Turner braided brake lines. I feel like this is a very good upgrade for $600. Need the old hanger, so we're gonna put a bit of grease on that and get it back on, bolt her up. Caliper has been done. Now this can just get bolted on. Now, shout out to Kiefer, who I think stole this off Doug Dubac. That was easy. Nah, that was easy. This is a pretty epic upgrade. You can get OEM parts to build this little Frankenstein brake kit, or basically anything else for any brand by going to motorsport.com. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And then you think about, and I know you personally don't want to rely on guys aging out of the AMA.
We don't be the MLS.
You guys becoming the retiree series. But I mean, I look at guys like Jason Anderson, loves to travel. He's actually a cultured individual.
Yep.
He's got a super cool wife that is like crazy into fashion.
Sure.
So
I've got a series for him.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You've got a place where he can go, where his wife can enjoy their time. Justin Barsha, his wife's British.
Yeah. I think Cooper Webb's the same.
Yeah.
I think
Cooper loves to travel.
Yeah.
So you're going to have as well these guys that there's been like a hard stop.
Yeah.
Where it's like you hang on racing the AMA for as long as you can. You kind of fall off a little bit. We've got a bit of a meme of like the guys that have stayed too long and the bikes that they were on. And it's like, okay, let's just stop that. They can leave the series in the kind of as the person that they were And then for different reasons, they go and they do this other series. New seats become available. There's never going to be a shortage of talent to fill these seats. Oftentimes we see these guys get displaced and their careers fall off because it's a game of musical chairs and there ain't that many fucking chairs, So I think that over the next few years, you're going to have different guys for different reasons want to be a part of your series that are still fantastic dirt bike racers. They're not in the prime of their careers, but they're by no means washed. And they're getting to have a different experience and add a different kind of value to our global ecosystem.
And I think also the lens of only so many seats in America is how does the European rider break into America as well, right? I think that's a really nice lens. So if you've got real interest from, I don't know, Kernan, whoever they be in MXGP, and they're like,
it's a great point, actually.
I want to race in the US, but the seats are not necessarily there for me. How do I get to prove that I'm going to be pretty good on a Supercross bike?
Well, the barrier to entry is so high here too.
Yeah, correct. And we're honest about what our tracks are. Our tracks are not as challenging.
Don't know, bro. You see the finish line jump at Perth? Fucking hell.
Yeah, true. Right. But
that was savage.
Yeah, it was. I remember Kenny before it. It's like he was like, I've noticed and I respect it from a different sporting background, but Kenny is very particular about the track and beforehand he was very particular about that bit. But my point to that is that maybe the entry point of our tracks gives opportunity
a little bit less.
For somebody to go, no, I'm going to go and state my claim. Or there's the other piece to this, which is that, an MXGP rider comes off the end of his MXGP season because, we finish after MX of Nations and they go, no, you know what? I'm only going to do 7 Supercross races a year and I'm going to blend that with MXGP and it's going to give me the chance to race against the others. And also from the way that, you can probably get paid in World Supercross compared to some guys getting paid in MXGP. It's an opportunity there. So I do think that there's like an in and an out. There is absolutely some people at certain points in their career reference where they need to be with their manufacturers. And then there are others that are going, well, hang on, where can this be as my opportunity and my bridge to meaning something else? Because, there's not always a Prado. That seat's not always available in quite the same way.
I hadn't really thought about the MXGP version of it. I've definitely been very American rider focused because I guess traditionally that's who races Supercross. But you think about Lucas Coonan. How sick would it be to see Hurlings do a Supercross season? Yeah. Tim Geiser.
Tim Geiser would be incredible.
Dude, that excites me. Those guys rip at, Paris and whenever they get to...
Yeah, and we... hey, look, we've got wildcards that I've got to be clever in the way I spend my wildcards, right? So... I've got a superstar rider fund and deployment of capital. I want to drive in, IP into teams, all of those things. But equally, what opportunity is there to put Tim Geiser versus Eli Tomac on a Supercross track somewhere in the world? And I promise you, that's content that people engage with.
Yeah,
and then you go back to
100%.
that microtransaction piece again, and I go, right, okay, we're speculating big time here, but suddenly Eli push out, I'll be racing this week. Tim Geiser comes out and says, I'll be racing this week on a Honda. You push that through on the micro stream and suddenly, we're going, where in the world do you get to see this? Equally, it's part of the World Championship, but where do you get to see Tim versus Eli? It's
a race within a race.
Race within a race. And suddenly 50,000 people go, yeah, I want to watch that. Okay, great. $2.50.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the opportunity that this sport has. And I talk about what happened in the past with World Supercross was also a moment that the evolution of digital sport has definitely been the last 18 months. So it is slightly easier for me to talk about what do I mean about IP and how do you monetize consumer? How do you create global revenue and not just ticketing revenue? Whereas, 3 years ago when World Supercross first set out, despite having the OTT platform and stuff, things were much more underdeveloped. So the costs were still the same. They were still having to engage the teams, but ultimately their revenues, they put on world-class events. The event in Melbourne for World Supercross was brilliant. But the revenues associated there were ultimately localized revenues against global costs.
Yeah.
What we must do is, yes, recognize global local revenues, but what we must drive is global revenues and global IP-based revenues, and engage the system to do that. And the way that I want to do that and to get everybody on side is to share those revenues. But that's really just because I see that as the opportunity to get people on our side and do some of that work for us. But, you know, we're just talking now about, I think there's also an amazing opportunity about what does the documentary series look like for World Supercross. I think if you look at it through the lens of a domestic series, it is tailored then really for a domestic audience. I think if World Supercross has got riders from all over the world, MXGP, AMA, Australia, wherever, taking place all over the world, and you're doing legacy events alongside governments at tracks, all of those things, you've got an opportunity to tell some cool stories.
100%.
And we have a history of the second most watched sports documentary on Netflix ever in Sunderland Till I Die, put together by Fullwell 73, and it goes Drive to Survive, Sunderland Till I Die.
Wow.
Yeah, and
when did that come out?
Sunderland Till I Die is a 4-series. Funny enough, actually, our acquisition of Sunderland is season 4, so we can't really take too much for it, but we do talk about it a lot because obviously it's now a massive part of who we are.
Yeah.
But it's the second most watched sports documentary of all time on Netflix.
Yeah. Right.
Put together by Fullwell 73, who are like one of the biggest production houses in the world.
Have you got any plans on something like that for Supercross?
Yes.
Like WSX?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we've been working on that quite a lot. I really believe that the opportunity to tell those stories against a global context with all of the things that we've spoken about today makes for really interesting storytelling. I also think that there's some incredible characters.
Oh, yeah.
Like, amazing characters that have all got stories to tell, different ages, you know, and you can create awesome characters as well. Imagine taking the Aaron Plessinger and then like Hayden Deegan and then someone from MXGP and Enzo Lopes, and you know, you bring all those together and then you push that out to an international audience because we've got the right to push it out to an international audience, and we jump on the back of all our other content, put out an episode every week that you're live. Max Anstey, you know, I think that's some really great storytelling.
Dude, Ken Roczen is from East Germany.
Yeah.
Like, grew up when East Germany was East Germany, you know, and just grew up in this crazy way with a crazy dad that just was like, knew that he had this prodigious talent. And it's like 14 years old. He's racing a fucking 450 in the German championship. You know, like they had like a track at their house that they made that everybody would come and ride, and at 15 years old, he wins the world championship. Like, just
but that, funny enough, that sounds alien to you guys. But equally, the track where all the star racing guys are at, with that team that's built out over there, and some of the characters that will be there, will to the Europeans be like, what on earth? What, they do that every day, and it's built out over there, and you know, scratching the surface of this.
It's so under-leveraged. It's crazy.
And for me, the reason why we're so ripe to do that is that, you know, all of the big streamers need to speak to international audiences. They need this to be something that if it turns on in Brazil, there is a race in Brazil, there is characters in Brazil, there's legacy and reason why you're in Brazil. So that they can go, brilliant, we've got 300,000 viewers in Brazil. I promise you, it doesn't matter whether Enzo is racing in the US, that audience doesn't get turned on in quite the same way.
No.
So we are unique as the ability to turn on a global audience for a global streamer as a global entity.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel really strongly that we're onto something with that. Now we've just got to develop what that story is and how that works, and then how those rights sit appropriately with teams and how we engage riders. You know, riders don't have to be announced for World Supercross until 100 days before the series. Like, what's the content that sits alongside that? How do you do back of house content whilst they're also racing on another series? I'm actually open-minded to saying, you own that. You're just like, yeah, great. If you're racing outdoors in the summer in the US, you recognize that they're racing outdoors in the summer in the US. You don't even say that it's on the way to World Supercross or anything like that. You just recognize the fact that that's what these riders have to do, even if we're the hero assets at the end of it.
Yeah, that's always been a bit of a weird thing. Like, right up until the whole SMX union.
Sure.
They just wouldn't even wouldn't even say on the broadcast that he won an outdoor title.
Yeah,
It was crazy segregated, and it's just like, do I not know that? Like, do you know what I mean?
Well, it actually doesn't show a lot of respect to you as a fan.
Yeah.
I again, I suppose it comes back with the naivety piece, but we've got to own all of this.
Yeah.
Own all of this. And kind of revel in it a little bit.
Yeah, if you've got Eli Tomac that's won this many AMA, you should say that.
Yeah.
You should tell your audience that he's that guy that's in that series. And again, like, you should also want people to watch that series.
Correct.
You're only going to race in this window. Like, let's keep those fans engaged.
In keeping with the notion that if I'm successful in all of the things that I'm doing, more people will watch the other series around the world, whether that's France, Germany, Australia, or the US. Absolutely. The better I get at this thing, the better everybody else will make money. Now, admittedly, the money for them in that case will probably be rounding errors, and it won't have a massive impact. But there is truth in when I say that.
Well, and there's just culture at large.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's just culture of motorcycling and culture of Supercross, and it's one of the things, like with this, where we like to have it so that if you like Supercross and motocross, then you have something to watch every day.
Yeah.
Like, our channel posts every single day, whether it's an old episode, whether it's a new episode, there's something all the time. Because as a fan, that's how I live my life. I read Racer X every day. I read Transworld. I went on the website. Like, you want to be a part of your sport 24/7. That's at least at like the true fan level.
And I've said this to you. Absolute kudos to what you do here. This sport needs it. It needs the world-class approach that you have to production and the open-minded nature you have to the commercial beast that it can become, and the fact that it needs to have a diversity in thought to appreciate it. Because as a begrudging consumer of some of the other content in our sport, that what you're doing brings in new eyeballs, ease of eyeballs. People are watching it. Okay, they're watching it in their college common rooms, and people then watch more of it with it because it's good to watch, and you've got diversity of people on there. Some of the content in our sport on podcasts is awful.
It's wild, eh?
It is wild. And I keep sitting there thinking to myself, because I'm on airplanes a lot. So I'm like, cool, I'm downloading, listening. I want to know what's going on. And I just keep thinking to myself, what are the numbers here? Are the numbers good? Because if the numbers are good, then that's what an awesome opportunity for everybody to go and start creating some really, really good content. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I had an advantage of like being a film person first, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's definitely, that would be the reason why. And I took like a massive financial hit to produce the show the way that we produce it. So I kind of understand that it's definitely not this easy for other people to do it. But I just think that there's like levels, right? And there's the super endemic hardcore dude that like wants to know about clickers and wants to know about suspension, who was running this. So there's like, and that doesn't require a level of production, you know? So I just think that there's like different tiers in a sport, and you get to like, to attract a certain type of fan at a certain level of interest, you've got to have a certain level of production, a certain level of workflow, a certain level of, you know. So I just think that there's just different levels.
I would say that there's a real. I don't necessarily think that the major assets of AMA Supercross and MXGP are covered in some ways in the world-class way that the sports are necessarily produced, which are, I think both of them are produced brilliantly from their own organisations, and then there are some content in the middle of that is not at the same standard of that. And I think the opportunity for us when we look at it from World Supercross is like, we're not going to be dependent on others creating content around us. We're actually going to go, right, here's our live stuff, here's our non-live stuff, here's our shoulder programming, and we'll just take on all of the responsibility to create the ecosystem ourselves. And try and bring people in.
That's quite important, I think.
Yeah, 100%. We have to do it that way.
Yeah.
We have to do it that way. And then if people come and then do their content alongside us, then that's great. But I can't be dependent on that growing our ecosystem.
Yeah.
You know, again, it comes back to that thing I said at the very beginning. If we can't be the best at racing, what can we be the best at?
Yeah.
And honestly, that we will be great at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was my whole thing creating this is like, I wanted something that I would want to watch.
Yeah.
Like just at the time that I made this, there was nothing that I wanted to watch that was like this.
Sure.
Now I don't get to watch that kind of content.
Yeah, sure.
I have to make it.
Yeah.
But I guess I get the
I
get the one-on-one of like actually
Sure.
doing it. But yeah, I mean that was ultimately it. I was like, I was used to, as a fan of the UFC and as a fan of other motorsports, Formula One. But I mean, dude, there's no really good Formula One podcast. No. There's nothing in MotoGP. Like, it's actually pretty wild. But again, there's no investment. I have to get all the money myself. There's and you don't necessarily like want to take on a large investment, like, because then you're working for somebody else. But it's definitely not easy to have something high production value that is quite expensive to run when you're building it from the ground up. But if you look at like the UFC, dude, ESPN would invest a fuckload of money into podcasts every single month. You know, like the UFC themselves would invest. Like there's a huge level of investment, multiple teams with multiple staff. Yeah. And then you're also, the sport is big enough to sustain more independent creators as well. You know, like the independent creators that are in our sport are just fighting for such a there's like a smaller consumer, or like there's a small demographic for them to kind of pick from, and then there's like not a lot of money that's associated too. So I definitely understand it from that side as well.
I think what we need to do is work out how we ensure that all of those guys that are creating content in and around our ecosystem have got all the relevant assets, you know, and that they know that this is a really, really welcoming ecosystem for them to come and create content in. And that's content that can hold us accountable. If the content is negative, the content is negative, right?
Yeah.
That I'm not saying it needs to be prescribed, but what we definitely need to give them the opportunity is the connection to, you know, if they want to put some of the highlights packages into their content, they can put the highlights packages into content, and that will be distributed because they'll be able to plug in, go boom, and it'll zip it into their thing. And they might only get 10 seconds, and they might get this bit here and this bit here, but that's at broadcast quality that they can roll into their production.
Yeah.
And that'd be really easy for them to have.
Yeah. And I think that there's, that's a good point that, at least in my experience working with you guys, like you actively want to hear the ways you can improve.
Yeah.
Which 100%. Is, and I think that's kind of the only way to do it.
But it's professional sport, right?
Yeah. But there also should be a responsibility of people that are making the content, if it is negative, for it to be like respectfully negative and constructive. Negative. Like even in we like the merch thing, we posted Alex is an idiot, but like, I mean, I'm even thinking like, fuck, do I email these guys this and just be like, hey, I didn't expect to have hundreds of comments shit canning your merch, but this is like a really good Google review of your product. So like, just take a read, see if anything hits. Because I know the comments that hurt me are the ones that are true, when I get criticism. Because, you know, there is a real value in being open to criticism, but there's also a real value to criticizing in a constructive way. And I mean, I try to be very careful when I criticize certain things about the sport to criticize it in a constructive way and in a way that also, like, I'm offering a solution. Like, hey, I think this is fucked. But I think if you did this, it could be like just that little bit better instead of just being like, this is fucked.
Yeah, I agree. Constructive is the way. I think I wouldn't look. We welcome it, but again, it's. I talk about like what's on your balance sheet. On our balance sheet at the moment is we recognise where we come from. So the more constructive criticism we receive, the more relationships we can build. It's much harder if you're at the top of the mountain to take criticism because there's ego and all sorts of things in play.
And is it going to make a difference anyway?
Yeah, correct. So
do we need to change?
Yeah, and do we care? And if we're a traveling circus that is able to do certain things in certain ways and make the money that we need to make, do we care? Right? I think there's a different way. And I'd like to be held accountable if you and I sat down in 3 years' time and we were successful, and if our behaviours changed in that way, I'd like someone to hold me accountable to do so, because it's easier for me to say that now than it is in another route. But I absolutely recognise that that it should be done constructively. I've also seen some behaviours on man with camera that are not necessarily constructive.
In what way?
Well, just in certain content creators in our sport, just free reign going off on people, teams, riders, promoters. I'm not sure how, when it's really unconstructive, I'm not really sure how helpful that is to anyone.
It's so fucking weird, man. Like there is that, but there's also a weird part of, well, there's like a part of me that thinks that that's also like a positive sign for the sport.
Sure.
Like and I use the analogy of like if an organism can withstand a certain amount of parasites or like bad bacteria, like if there's enough good bacteria that the bad bacteria can like exist and not kill the organism, like
you're strong enough.
Yeah. And then it's like there's got to be something has to be a certain size for that to even be viable. So if like that dude is viable and it's just like fucking wrong, completely insane, then it's maybe even a good sign in a weird backwards way. But for the people that fall in the crosshairs, fuck, that would suck.
Oh, that's it, right? Like, I mean, because what I have is the team come in and they say, whether it's about WSX or about something else, the team will come in and be like, you need to see this. And I'm like, just check yourself quickly. Do I need to see this? They're like, I think you just need to be aware of what's going on out there. It's that thing. And I watch it and I'm like, oh my God, wow.
Wow.
It was like, and so going back to that piece of like where we're going, where we've been from, and you know the humility of recognizing that we want to work with lots of people, and we don't want to upset people. We want to counterbalance that by being strong in who we are. Yeah, I don't get me wrong. It's exhausting.
It would be.
Like it's exhausting having over the last 7 or 8 months, 9 months, tried to be sort of everything for every man a little bit. Because of the reasons that we've all said. It's easier to be the person at the front going, we're just going to do it my way.
Yeah. Well, and that comes down to leverage though, right?
Yeah. And that's why I'm really grateful for the team that we've been able to build and the people that we've been able to build around it, and all with relatively thick skin.
Yeah, lucky your palms.
Yeah, I think it's it.
Bro. Imagine if you weren't. Fucking hell.
I know, I definitely, because there's like...
Yeah, when I hung with Lou, I was like, oh, she's going to make it.
Because you know what it's like, Aussies and English people, like, you know, with the flack that we'll take, people walk in and be like, have you seen what's been written? And everyone just starts laughing about it.
Yeah.
Like, there's just like no one at all. And then we've got, you know, a couple of Europeans that are on our team that sort of come from motocross backgrounds. And they're like in the background, like stunned.
Like rattled.
I'm like, oh no, mate, it doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter. It's fine. It's fine. We'll go find the guy. We'll have a chat with him.
Yeah, we copped it a bit with the whole like my privateers thing.
Yeah.
And like my brother, there was like a couple of days online where I was just getting hammered. And my brother called me and he's just like, oh, they just don't know you. Like they just fully don't know that you can take this.
Sure.
Of all the people, like this actually won't affect you in that way.
Yeah,
that's just coming from where we come from.
Yeah, and I also think
growing up playing footy.
Yeah, I also think from a business sense, we're really, I stand by this. We're grateful for this. We've got 2 owners who not only are a bit thick-skinned, but are really clear in what they're trying to achieve. And because there would be another situation where, you know, you see people piling on, and then you got an ownership group suddenly start getting a bit nervous. But because we come from a soccer background, where 1 week everyone's happy, and the next week everyone hates you. They
have pitchforks.
Like
fire out the front of them.
Especially in the northeast of England.
Yeah.
So we're all.
It's pretty grim up there at times.
Can we especially if you lose away at Hull or wherever, and we've ownership really clear on what we're doing from a business sense, and have empowered the entire group, and I empower our group to say, hey, we're out there trying to do what we're going to do, and we're not going to turn our ears off to this. We'll listen to all of these things and recognise where we're coming from, be humble with it, but believe in what we're trying to do. Set that North Star for who we are, set that North Star for the sport, be really, really good at what we do, and humble with it. And hopefully, on the other side of it, we're all better off because of it.
Before you go, I wanted to talk about electric bikes. It's another topic where I think you guys have a bit more room and leniency, and I guess maybe less manufacturer pressure. But what's your general thoughts on the whole e-bike thing?
I've got a conversation with Anton at the moment.
Great guy,
really great guy. And actually, when I say conversation with Anton, I've got a conversation with Anton because he's a great guy. Love what they're doing. Clearly, a form of electric dirt bikes is going to have a huge, huge part of the future of participation in dirt bikes.
Well, and it's got to be a selling point for you in certain markets too, right? That has to come into play. From
government funding.
Government funding.
China. If we wanted to race in China, we'd have to have that. Where's my head? So there's two parts to where my head's at, right? If I look at it absolutely exclusively through the lens of creating a story to promote, clearly selling the story of being the only major motorsport in the world that can see electric take on combustion is a story that broadcasters, media rights holders, ourselves would love to tell, would absolutely love to tell. The question is, when is that story to be told? So that where we are today, we've got, I wouldn't say that I'm sitting on great manufacturer strength with our combustion manufacturers. And do they care enough to not want to race against Stark out of fear of losing? And what does that look like? What's the balance of that? And then on top of that, what's the regulations to make it appropriate? I'm not necessarily sure I'm versed enough in Supercross to be the person that comes up with those regulations.
Yeah.
But luckily the FIM are, and it's already happening in Super Enduro, and there are now precedents in Supercross, Arena Cross. Obviously MXGP is going to have its own E-class. Things are all developing in the appropriate way to do so. We've got to pick the right time and the appropriate way to ensure that our entire ecosystem can support that. I can't, nor would I want to, ram it through the lens of me and potentially Stark without everybody else going, you know what, the sport is going to be better because the storylines that we're going to be able to tell means that we're going to be able to create more eyeballs, so we all see this as a positive thing. And then in which case, then I think there's a great opportunity. There's still things like sound and all of the questions that I have as a fan, which go, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? We have to answer all of those questions. What we can't do is just do it. But I will always have that conversations. I think it's at the heart of innovation, isn't it? If we're saying we're going to be innovative, one of those things is, well, why is electric not racing with you then?
Yeah.
So the answer to the question is that's a conversation that will always be had and continue to be had, and finding the right time to do so. And could that be in 2025? Who knows? Could that be in 26? Who knows? But I can tell you that I really enjoy getting to know Anton, and I think there's a really awesome opportunity in the future that's really unique to this sport because of the way electric bikes are going to play their part.
Yeah. One thing as well to maybe touch on is just how dependent on manufacturers do you want to be? Because right now, I would say the AM, if you really zoom out and you look at Feld, it's a pretty crazy model. They put on the race. Yeah. They don't share revenue with anyone. And this isn't a big...
They create a marketing platform.
Yeah. So this isn't a negative. No, this is just purely, this is what it is, right? So you have a series that is the promoter and the marketing platform, and it's hey, come and race our series. They don't necessarily pay the people to participate. They don't pay, as to put it Jeffrey Hurling said, they don't pay the clowns in the circus.
Sure.
but they have this huge manufacturer support because
helps
manufacturers want to sell dirt bikes and they need to go racing. So they take care of paying the clowns in the show. But in turn, the manufacturers have a really big say on how the racing happens because they're essentially racing amongst themselves. Like, really, Feld doesn't have to give a fuck. So they're just like, you guys figure it out. So then there's like these manufacturers that have a massive say in how the sport itself is run, which then stops Feld from being able to like leverage the sport even further, change.
Sure.
Like it kind of just has to stay
flatlines
how it is. So then I think that's why you've just seen this thing stay the same over a lot of years. Granted, SMX, like, so
Sure.
I'm going back,
back
to that, right? But it's like there's all these parties that have a lot of say, and now it seems like there's stalemates because of how much influence and leverage each party has, to where it's like, unless somebody came in, like let's say a Dana White, and was like, I'm buying the sport for $1 billion.
Saudi Arabia.
$750 million, whatever. Because it's this live property, and all right, we're going to pay the riders individually. We don't need the manufacturers.
Yeah, you essentially contract everything.
You know what I mean? So there's like, it's just in such a solid state because all of these parties have these different things that they kind of have this huge amount of influence over. But you guys kind of can avoid that relationship, I'm assuming, if you're careful.
Yeah, I think so.
But you need them now, but you don't need them all the way. I don't know.
I think, well, let's look at the now. I think it's probably the most important bit is recognizing that this sport requires strong manufacturers to be able to sell bikes around the world. And both I and other domestic series have the responsibility to build the ecosystem and the theatres to give them the opportunity to sell those bikes via going racing and spending their marketing dollars appropriately. I think once we've created that ecosystem, I think then we've really got to question what is the absolute ideal model of private race teams, manufacturer race teams, etc. Whilst, you know, the manufacturers sit there with the leverage because clearly they've got the riders contracted to them at this point in time.
So that's where the leverage is realistically with the
That's where that sits. But if we can build an ecosystem that gets the manufacturer recognize upside for them, and recognize that upside is more valuable if they release riders to do so, and it might be that there is a sort of hybrid model of what teams look like on the other side, because what manufacturers don't want to have to do is go racing with their factory teams more, which costs them more money. What can they do is there a hybrid model where the private team sits in the front of it, and that is supported well by the manufacturer, which actually flatlines their dollar spend for return on investment around the world. First of all, got to build the ecosystem. Manufacturers don't want to go and race. They don't want to race 10 more weekends with their factory teams directly right now. That also being said, maybe there's a model where if you take in all of the areas that their factory teams are racing right now, in 3 years' time, when you take a big step back and they go, right, let's see which ones give us the biggest return on investment. Well, World Supercross might, and as might all of the American stuff, and then they turn around and go, but that one doesn't. So what does it? I do think there is a changing of the guard or some tectonic plates moving on where is marketing dollars spent. And I think the experiences that KTM have gone through have shown us that nothing is sacrosanct. And that we as a promoter opportunity have got to give hybrid opportunity and models for manufacturers to come and join, not just at the extra cost of racing their factory team more. So all of my engagements with manufacturers are twofold. How do I build an ecosystem where they're able to sell more bikes? How do I not cost them more money to come and support my series? If I can do both of those, there is no CEO, take the racing teams out of it, there is no CEO of a manufacturer in the world that goes, don't do that. It's just not, because they're businesses, right?
Yeah.
Now, the guy who runs the team may be like, but I don't want to do World Supercross. But ultimately, that will be done by the bottom line on an Excel spreadsheet for the manufacturer. And if I can do those two things, that will unlock.
Yeah, and that's what was crazy about just to go back to the Roczen thing that prompted and I don't know how much of the World Supercross thing, maybe that was the scapegoat for getting out of the Honda deal,
Right.
and maybe that was an unhappy marriage finding a reason to actually get divorced.
Sure.
But it's like, okay, in what world do you not want this guy racing a Honda around from exactly the perspective that you said?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that probably that was the thing, but it's just like, yeah, no, this doesn't make sense.
No.
Come on. It's not that you don't want this guy racing 4 more races around the world on a Honda. I don't know that that's how this works, bro.
Correct. So, we go back to, we build that ecosystem first, and then the next bit is how do we proceed there? And, we are also not dependent on that happening anytime soon for our profitability to make case. We are a live events marketing digital business that transacts via the vehicle of dirt bike.
Yeah. No, it's a great way to say it. Well, hey, this has been awesome.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time.
No, it's been really cool. You guys have a big job ahead of you. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
But I'm a fan. I've been a fan. I've been very vocal about my support of the series, I guess, from its inception.
Sure.
To now. I've been to a few of the races. I'm all for more guys making money. There's more stuff for me to talk about.
Yeah.
There's more stuff to be a fan of. Just from talking to you guys, Lou, the team, I think you guys have the pieces for the puzzle to make this thing work.
Appreciate your time, buddy. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.